And away we go on a Thursday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us, along with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We start our NFL Draft Combine series today as the offseason never sleeps. There is no offseason. There's only research. That's Modelo Fan Rule number 31. Welcome into Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, along with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. From Saturdays to Sundays, Big 12 prospects, what actually matters. We'll dig into the prospects from the Big 12 going today and tonight. The defensive line, defensive ends, linebackers. No specialists. Kickers are also going today, so we'll see what kind of three-cone the kickers run, James.
Three-cone kickers at the top of the list. I went back and looked at some of the NFL Combine records and see if it correlated into success in the NFL. There were a couple of hits, but for the most part, a lot of misses. And I think the Big 12 has a really nice blend of guys that I'm excited to see, what the numbers look like at the Combine. But there are guys that are projected to go in the top 15, top 20 of the NFL draft. The league is very well represented with 4 or 5 guys that could go in the top 20 and guys that were extremely productive in college, guys that it doesn't really matter what they do at the Combine. Like, we know they're going to grade out fairly well, but guys like Jordan Tyson and Spencer Fano, the offensive lineman from Utah, and David Bailey, the edge rusher from Texas Tech, regardless of what those guys do at the Combine, it might move the needle a little bit, but they were just studs. They were studs in the Big 12, and they're going to be drafted because of their on-field production as much as anything else.
Well, and Jacob Rodriguez is kind of a blend of those two because the off-ball linebacker is not a premium position. His production will only go so far. I think the testing will go a long way. And, as we'll point out in our segment in the final hour of the show today, it's interesting because there are certain drills, exercises, if you will, that correlate to certain positions. And so I think you're right. Like, there are certain, everybody talks about the 40. The 40 is more unimportant now than it's ever been, especially for most positions. The 10-yard shuttle is probably one that's a lot better because that grades out explosiveness. So we'll dig into all that. What's also interesting about the Combine is I feel like every year the big news out of the Combine is who won't be participating, and it feels like that's not really the case this year.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Everybody's in for the most part, and it is what it is. I am a sucker for the 40-yard dash. And you're right, it's probably the most overhyped event thing measurable at the Combine, because how many times do you see football players running in a straight line 40 yards throughout the course of a game? And I remember Bernard Pollard, the safety, who went on to have a really, really successful NFL career. The Chiefs took him in the second round, and everybody thought it was a reach because he tanked his 40 time. He ran a 4.7, offensive lineman numbers. But the Chiefs reached for him in the second round because they were more concerned about what he did from 0 to 10 yards, from 10 to 20 versus the full 40. So there's a lot that goes into it, the way you dissect it. But I am a sucker for the 40, and I can't wait to see what Jacob Rodriguez runs because you watch him on the football field and the shuttle drill and the cone and all that stuff to see his lateral quickness, because when you watch him, he looks like the fastest guy on the field. That's just the way he plays. So I can't wait to break down those numbers today.
Have you heard about the software engineer who got access to a bunch of vacuum robots, 7,000 of them, and started to remote control 7,000 vacuum robots across the world?
Actually, yes, I did. Does this tie into the Combine, or are we going in a different direction?
Going in a different direction.
Okay, just making sure, because absolutely, I'm all over this story.
So basically, there's a software engineer that bought one of these DJI robot vacuums, and instead of using the controller that he got, he wanted to program his PS5 controller for the robot. So he used Claude, which I guess is becoming Claude Anthropic. I guess it's becoming the top AI model, AI tool. And basically, by using Claude, he was able to hack into the servers, for lack of a better way to put it, since I'm not a software engineer, I don't really know much about it, to gain access through his controller to 7,000 vacuum robots, DJI robots, across 24 countries. Now, you might be thinking, wow, that's pretty wild, but this has real world insane implications. Talk about like not having enough back-end security, but that basically gave him access to 7,000 homes, audio, visually mapping the homes of these 7,000 people.
Yeah. And it was kind of an accident. Like he
totally. Well, at least he's saying it was.
Right. And I think he was just kind of goofing around. But, yeah, he used Claude code, and Claude is blowing up. We talk a lot about AI in the future, and in terms of coding, Claude seems to be, to your point, light years above all of these other companies, Grok, that's Elon Musk's, or ChatGPT, or Microsoft Copilot, and the list goes on and on. But, yeah, so he reverse engineered how the robot, the vacuum, was communicating with the remote cloud servers, and it definitely, for me, it was eye-opening, and I haven't read a ton about it, but it got me thinking about all the cameras and all the devices that are out there that if you can hack into this, what's stopping somebody from hacking into your computer or your iPhone or
your Ring
camera,
right,
or anything else that may be having eyes on you that you think only has eyes on you?
Yeah, the DJI Global confirmed that they have fixed their vulnerability. But yeah, I mean, if you're using a Claude's AI model, Anthropic AI, to do this, I mean, imagine what somebody could do with just their own abilities without having to use AI. And there have been multiple examples of Claude doing things similar to this, but nothing to the scale of this. It is freaky. I mean, because everything we have now is, they only make products now that connect to the internet, and you can remote in. I mean, in some ways, obviously, there's a huge advantage to it, but in other ways, it's like, why can't we just go old school analog? To where I'm not leaving myself vulnerable to somebody that is able to easily hack in and unlock all my locks, or look at my Ring cameras or internal cameras or whatever else. Because that's basically like, some of these products don't need all this stuff. Like my fridge doesn't need remote access. I don't need remote access to my refrigerator.
Right. I need my refrigerator to keep my food cool. That's it.
I don't need an
42
app.
degrees.
Yeah, you get a new fridge. It's like, download the app, and now you can see what's in your fridge at all times. Like, what? Like, how lazy are we? Get up and go look at the fridge.
Man, so the home that we currently live in, the previous owners who were retired and very advanced in terms of the way that they renovated this house, it has 1,000 gadgets. It's got a ton of gadgets. I have a whole block of apps on my phone that are just gadgets for the house that I never use. In fact, I've tried to set them up and hit a little bit of a roadblock and I'm done. I don't need all this stuff. But it does make me wonder, do the Blakes still have eyes on us?
Yeah, right.
Right?
I mean, yes. You might just shut that all down.
I think I have, but I give this guy credit with the robot vacuums for
coming forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Coming forward. Hey, there's an issue here. If I can do this, somebody else can do it probably a lot easier than I can, and do it in a not so positive way for malicious intent. So I give them a lot of credit for doing that. But also, I was reading a post or something about the future in AI and how far it's advancing, and how we could be 5 years away from just AI everything, to the point where in the future society is so dialed into the digital world that what we're doing here, having face-to-face communication and actually bonding and going old school, if you will be like a luxury item. It'll be what people start to crave. Right now, everybody's craving this digital age and era of it's an arms race for the newest technology, where it's going to kind of flip, and the luxury status will be people that go back to the old school days of connecting in ways that aren't AI driven.
And in some ways, it feels like there's a good blend of both. And I know there's a lot of, there's a huge push from schools, especially with parents with kids in schools, would like to move more away from technologies and AI chatbots that have become everywhere now. Especially with kids. I was reading this thing about how, as a parent, if your kid is constantly on an AI chatbot, then why would they come to you for questions that they might have? if you're like part of the child-parent dynamic is about like being the answer to the questions. But if kids have, unfettered access to an AI chatbot, they constantly ask questions to and get them answered, then why would they ever come to you to ask those questions?
Right. I mean, it's Google on steroids is what it is to me. And just to kind of put it into perspective, the number one use for ChatGPT and these other bots, if you will, and this was fascinating, learned this at one of our town halls, the number one use is companionship. It's not research. It's not Googling something like we would back in the day, if you will. A lot of people are using these AIs as companions, which to me is super scary. Like, they're not your therapist. There's a lot of situations where that's gone very wrong, but people are lonely, and they continue to get more lonely. It's just this giant loop, right?
Yeah. That's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is a Three Things Thursday. Three things. The Combine. Robots being taken over by one person, controlling 7,000 robots.
You did something to my headset.
Must have, yeah, absolutely.
Are you getting static in your headset?
Yes. I sabotaged you.
Okay.
And the third thing is the University of Cincinnati has filed suit against Brendan Sorsby, their former quarterback, via an official statement from Cincinnati. Cincinnati Athletics is proud to partner with its student athletes and honors the contractual commitments it makes to them. We expect student athletes and their representatives to do the same. In his lucrative NIL agreement with Cincinnati Athletics, Brendan Sorsby committed to stay and play for 2 seasons as a proud Bearcat representative. He also agreed that if he left the university before that time, he would pay the university a specific amount for the substantial harm that his breach would cause. Cincinnati Athletics intends to enforce this contractual commitment. As stewards of the university's resources, the athletic department has a duty to do so. We thank Brendan for his time at Cincinnati. Wish him success in the future. So basically, they're taking him to court, suing him for $1 million as breach of contract. Sorsby's representatives at Lyft Sports Management released the following statement via The Athletic. Pursuing legal action against Brendan Sorsby is misguided. University of Cincinnati, through its revenue-sharing structure, paid him $875,800 for a season he fully completed, and in that time, he generated millions in value for the program. Attempting to recover those funds now sends the wrong message to current and future student athletes and risks damaging the long-term credibility of Cincinnati football. This is further disappointing given that Brendan parted ways with UC in what was a mutually agreeable manner. End quote. So here we have a war of words between the PR department at the University of Cincinnati and the PR department of Lyft Sports Management. Obviously we don't have any of the specific details of Sorsby's contract or NIL agreement with Cincinnati, but the fact that they filed suit in order to try to recoup this $1 million as part of the breach of contract speaks to what their legal department thinks is, a viable option for recourse.
Yeah, essentially these schools in a situation like this, and I hate to see it in the Big 12, especially when a player is transferring from a Big 12 school to another Big 12 school. But the schools are becoming collection agencies where Brendan Sorsby left and violated his contract, according to Cincinnati, with $1 million on the table. And he signs for $4 million, and Cincinnati says, hey, you owe us $1 million that'll buy us 2 or 3 really good players for that dollar amount. And from what I heard from the Sorsby camp, from the statement that you just read, to me it sounded like, well, he generated way more revenue than what he owes you, and that's our case for just throwing this whole thing out and why he doesn't want to pay it back. I'm sure Texas Tech will step in. There will be some type of settlement when this all shakes down. But these schools, my first takeaway is they are now collection agencies. When a player departs, especially a player of this caliber, and they leave behind a $1 million buyout or whatever the terminology actually is or should be, the schools are now working hard to collect that money because you can get, like I said, 2 or 3 really good players for $1 million, maybe even more depending upon where these players are transferring up. And the bottom line is there's less margin for error for a school like Cincinnati when it comes to dollars and cents.
No, you're exactly right. This makes the Cincinnati hosting Texas Tech game this year even more intriguing. We knew it was going to be fun to see Sorsby go back to Cincinnati, but this adds a different wrinkle to it. Look, I mean, schools, I'm sure, are looking at this and thinking, when we fire coaches, we got to pay them a ton of money in buyouts. Now, they're employees, and that's not the case for these student athletes.
Which is such a gray area.
Right. But you for the schools, you've got to hold them to commitments to set a precedent that, like, yeah, you signed this deal, and there's good and bads to that. And if you want to leave, you can leave. You're free to leave, but there's commitments that you've got to make in order to fulfill that.
Well, and the thing about this situation that makes it unfortunate is I hate to see the bad blood, because Brendan Sorsby did so much for Cincinnati. And Brendan Sorsby, he could have transferred out last offseason, and he didn't. And he came back, and he was a big reason why they played in a bowl game, even though he himself did not participate. He did a lot of really good things, and he did generate a lot of revenue for that school, and maybe set them on a path where if they have a successful year this year, he's a big part of that. He's a big part of also why guys like Gavin Gerhardt stayed, why guys like Jake Gaudet, who could have transferred anywhere in the country, stayed. Like, he was kind of their guy and their ambassador for the program. And his teammates and his coaches, I had a Cincinnati game this year, and they just raved about the kid. And meeting him at media days, I thought the same thing. He's just a really good dude. But I can see why he departed for $4 million to come back home. He's from Dallas. He's not that far from home in Lubbock. Like, both things can be true. He could do something really good for Cincinnati, and I can see why he wants to be closer to his family and closer to home where he grew up, and he's a country boy, and Lubbock, it just checks all the boxes for him.
Yeah.
So I see both sides of it.
James Westling, Ari Tepkin, Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. But again, I think it's extremely important for these schools to hold the kids accountable. If they're going to sign the agreement to get the positives of them, they've got to deal with the recourse and repercussions of not.
So your team, Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Same.
Without having seen the contract.
Right.
And knowing the specifics.
Agreed.
All right, on the way next as we continue, a lot to get to when it comes to the hardwood, including updates on what happened last night in women's basketball. Plus, some people are really up in arms about Auburn and the SEC in terms of Joey Brackett's latest bracketology.
As they should be.
We'll break it down for you next. With James Amari, it's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Still find their way into the bubble conversation. And a Kansas State team with nothing to lose as they try to close out their regular season with pride. Up ahead, Haggerty the lay-in. Ball gets swiped at, somehow gets through the defense, can't roll it in. Johnson has numbers, 3-on-2, accelerates past Kostic, takes the contact, gets the bucket, and a chance for one more.
What's disappointing for Kansas State right now is the defensive intensity. The hand activity is not nearly what it was to start this game.
Haggerty calmly connects on a triple of his own. I wonder if Kansas State can attack this bench unit for Colorado and try and dig into this lead. It's repeating. Colorado averages 10 turnovers per game. Johnson goes deep. Haggerty got behind the secondary. An easy lay-in. What a finish for Kansas State. Tad Boyle is going to be furious. They gave up a long three. And 12-1 when they lead at the half. Johnson jump, tried to pass it, turns it over. Hargress to the corner. Johnson spots up for a three. Haggerty finds the angle, ends the scoring drought, puts a cap on a 17-0 Colorado run.
A little short on that. He's got to get his legs underneath him every time. He's got good follow-through, just a little short.
Rapiak down low, flurry of fakes, kisses it off the window. He's on the floor with Ron Sheik. And an easy find down low and an and one opportunity. And that should do it from Boulder. The Buffaloes hold on for a 9-point victory. They're led by Johnson with 18 points.
Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 Today. Heard on TuneIn. Watched on Big 12 Studios, along with James Westling on social at James Westling. I am Ari Tepkin on social at Ari Sports. Big night last night in women's hoops. Kansas gets a big win over 20th ranked Texas Tech at Allen Fieldhouse, 68-59. Oklahoma State over Iowa State, 88-77. Big win for Oklahoma State. BYU over Arizona State, 66-61. And then TCU knocks off Cincinnati, 83-70. Also West Virginia over UCF, 74-62. On the men's side, some bracketology talk, James. And our friend Jason Shear from Wildcat Authority tweeted out a graphic saying if the Big 12 tournament started today, ... and then has a bracket showing, Arizona's the 1 seed, Kansas is the 2 seed, Iowa State is the 3, Texas Tech is the 4, and Houston as the 5, thanks to Anthony Smith, our producer with Big 12 Studios. If you're watching us on Big 12 Studios, you can see that graphic up right now. And, I mean, it's we've been talking about it, but just goes to show you the difference between the 4 and the 5 seed is huge. You get the double bye if you're one of the top 4 seeds, and if not, you're going to be playing, an extra game in there and not get that double bye. So, it again just goes to show that there are 5 elite teams, 6 really good teams, probably 8 tournament teams in the Big 12, maybe more, but only 4 double byes.
I mean, the double bye is going to be huge. We only have a 1 season or 1 tournament sample size, and that was clearly the case. I believe all 4 teams that had the double bye won their first game at the Big 12 tournament last year, which set up just an incredible quarterfinal and semifinal round. So I look at the teams that are seeded 5 through 8. That's the most interesting line of the bracket for me. When you look at Houston as a 5 seed, TCU as an 8 seed. Remember, last year, West Virginia was the 8 seed, and they got knocked out. West Virginia was the 9 seed. No, they were the 8, and they got knocked out by Colorado. And that ultimately...
It was the 16, right?
Yes, yeah. They were the 16. That's what kept West Virginia out of the NCAA tournament. So TCU would potentially play West Virginia or Utah. West Virginia and TCU just had a game that went right down to the wire that I called last weekend in Fort Worth. That could be a matchup in that second day that determines TCU's fate for the NCAA tournament, or maybe if West Virginia gets a win, it puts them on the right side of the bubble. And then BYU. Does BYU have the horses to win not just 1 game, but maybe 2? How about a BYU-Cincinnati? And that would be the round of 12. It's not even the quarterfinals at that point in time. It's the round of 12 game between BYU and Cincinnati. If Cincinnati won that matchup, would 2 wins in the Big 12 tournament put Cincinnati on the right side of the ball?
Well, and it feels now, James, like the conference tournaments don't really matter. It feels like, based on the last few years of the behaviors from the committee, that the field is pretty set heading into conference tournaments. And, unless there's a bid thief or just a crazy run by a bubble team saying Cincinnati, has wins over Houston and Kansas and plays for a Big 12 championship. I mean, maybe that, but for the most part, it feels like in recent history, it just only matters what you do up until the conference tournament. The conference tournament used to have a bearing on seeding and entrance into the tournament. It feels less and less important in today's world.
Yeah, and I would piggyback that with, I think, conference tournaments. I don't know that they've lost their importance as much as these conferences are so big now that it's really difficult to win 2 or 3 games in your conference tournament when you're playing multiple teams that have had extended rest, and it didn't used to be that way. Just 3 years ago, we had an NCAA tournament where there were basically 3 power conference bid thieves. You had Georgetown make a run, win their conference tournament. Oregon State won the Pac-12 and played Oklahoma State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And there was one more that year. And then NC State, the year that they got hot as an 11 seed and made the Final Four, they weren't even in the field before the ACC tournament. But they went through, won the whole thing, got to the dance, and we know what happened the rest of the way. See, and I would make the case that I think conference tournaments can hurt you as much as they can help you. When you look at West Virginia last year, if West Virginia beats Colorado in that first day of the Big 12 tournament, they are in the field. There's no doubt in my mind. Most people thought they were in the field even with that loss, but they were the first team out, and I believe the committee penalized them greatly for losing to a team that was the worst team in the Big 12 all year long. And then a lot of times when it comes to like 1 seeds or 2 seeds, the selection committee, because they're meeting around the clock, like jury duty style, they're not leaving that room during conference tournament weekend heading into Selection Sunday, because what they'll do is they'll seed the teams and they'll say, okay, if this team loses in their conference tournament, we knock them off the 1 line. If this 2 wins their conference tournament, we bump them up. So it really does come down to that very final afternoon in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Joey brackets, Joe Lenardi, his latest bracketology from yesterday, has the same 8 Big 12 teams we've been talking about, but 11 SEC teams. And people have zeroed in on Auburn specifically, who's 15-13, saying, Auburn's inclusion here is egregious. What say you, James?
I mean, I think it is. They're 15-13. What makes their resume so much better than a Cincinnati or even a West Virginia or other teams in this very conference? Now, what's helping them is their KenPom. They're number 37 in KenPom. They're a top 10 offense. They've played the most difficult schedule in America. They've got the number 1 strength of schedule.
Yeah, they played 16 quad 1 games.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And they're 36 in the net. They're 5-11 in quad 1. So, I mean, they do have 5 quad 1 wins. But, yes, seeing a team that's barely above 500 for the season, I can see why people zero in on them. And it's also, I think that we're in an era where you are rewarded if you play a very difficult schedule. And it's a reason why Baylor is still somehow, some way in the conversation. Baylor is currently 49th in the net rankings. They're 2-11 in quad 1. They're a couple of quad 1 wins away from being a bubble team. So I think that it's more their schedule versus anything else. But the SEC, outside of Florida, there's not really a dominant team. Like Texas A&M has kind of slid back down to earth. Vanderbilt has lost some games in conference play. This isn't the SEC that it was last year. So I can see why people are freaking out about 11 or 12 teams being in the field.
Yeah, and there was somebody else that basically tweeted, like, out of conference, how these conferences did, and the SEC was so bad. I mean, quad 1 games, the SEC hit 122% of those games. And so I went in kind of digging into the research to be like, oh, yeah, this is ridiculous. Let's see what we find. And the problem is I don't disagree with Auburn being in the field. So it's important to know what the committee is really looking at. Like that. We can't just cherry pick certain numbers and identify that as reasons for why a team should be out. They're looking, number 1, at quad 1 inventory. How many quad 1 games have you played? Road wins. Avoiding bad losses. And then they're looking at net and KenPom and other KenPom-like efficiency numbers, the Torvik, Evan Mia, those kinds of things. All right? So Auburn is 15-13, but they're 5-11 in quad 1. So the quad 1 inventory is large. That takes care of the strength of schedule. And they have 5 quad 1 wins. They're also 2-2 in quad 2. But they're 8-0 in quads 3 and 4. And so the biggest thing is, how many quad 1 games have you played? How many quad 1 wins do you have? And how many bad losses do you have? They played a lot of quad 1 games. They've had 5 quad 1 wins. They have no bad losses. 8-0 in quads 3 and 4. They're 2-7 on the road, so that's not great. But they're also, to your point, 36th in the net and 37th in KenPom. So they check most of those boxes. Just comparing, West Virginia has played 11 quad 1 games, so a lot, but 5 less than Cincinnati, and they've won 4 of them. They're 2-4 in quad 2, 2-1 in quad 3, 8-0 in quad 4. So they have that quad 3 loss. They're 3-5 on the road, 66th in the net, 61st in KenPom. So West Virginia checks the box of they have a lot of quad 1 inventory, and they've got 4 quad 1 wins. The problem is they do have a bad loss, a quad 3 loss. They're not great on the road, and they're not top 40 in the net, which is kind of one of those things that they're looking at. Mm-hmm. The other one, Cincinnati, they played 12 quad 1 games. They have won 2 of them. They also have that vaunted Eastern Michigan loss. That's a quad 4 loss. They're 2-7 on the road, so the same record as Auburn is on the road, and 51st in the net, 47th in KenPom. So, comparatively, again, Auburn has more quad 1 wins, more quad 1 games, has avoided those bad losses, 8-0 in quads 3 and 4. They're not great on the road, but they're top 40 in net. I think that's the huge differentiator. West Virginia probably has a better case than Cincinnati does, but I mean, Auburn, I dug in. So, like, the bottom of those 11 teams that he includes, Texas, Georgia, Auburn, A&M, Missouri, I mean, they're all pretty flawless in quads 3 and 4, and I think that's a huge difference between what the Big 12 is. Texas does have a quad 3 loss. Georgia has a quad 3 loss. None of these teams have quad 4 losses. And they're all top 40 in the net, except for A&M that's 42nd, and Missouri is 57th. And Missouri has 5 quad 1 wins.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the bottom line is losses to New Orleans or Eastern Michigan in the non-conference. Those do matter, and those do come back to bite you in some cases.
And I don't think it'll bite TCU at this point.
I don't either.
But it will bite. Like, when you're on the cusp, it kills you.
Yeah. And the case with Auburn, the reason why people are so up in arms is they're sliding, and they're sliding fast. Okay, they've lost 6 of their last 7 games. They've lost 2 games to sub-500 teams in the past week, and they're still in the field. But they are now very much on the bubble.
Right.
TCU, part of the last 4 in, and there's 2 teams below them, Indiana and New Mexico. So I think TCU, they're not the last team in. I would say the Big 12 is in a really solid position right now to get 8 teams in. TCU's next game is at Kansas State. Kansas State, as we know, is a mess right now. That's a game that TCU has to be dialed in and focused. And if you win that game, all of a sudden you're 19-10. You win 20 regular season games, you're above 500 in Big 12 play, you're in the field. But when it comes to a Cincinnati or a Baylor or a West Virginia, there's too many bad losses, and there's not enough high-profile quad 1 wins. You know, Cincinnati has just 2. West Virginia has 4, but they have 3 quad 2 losses. Like, that's just too many to get in the field. So I don't have a problem with this latest bracketology. TCU trending up in the right direction, and now I think there's a pretty good indicator that TCU is that team from that cluster in the middle of the Big 12 that has broken through and is going to be in the field on Selection Sunday.
And here's where the rubber meets the road. There's still 3 games left in the regular season, not even including conference tournament time. Auburn has Ole Miss, who's 90th in the net at home, LSU, who is 67th in the net at home. So those are not quad 1. I think Ole Miss is a quad 3 game, right? 90 at home?
90 at home would be, quad 3.
LSU 67th at home would be a quad 2. And then at Alabama, which is a quad 1. So, if Auburn takes a loss to Ole Miss, and that could open up a 9th spot for the Big 12. Mm-hmm. That now Cincinnati and West Virginia have a window, but they don't have much wiggle room for error here.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, they still need 1 or 2 more really high-profile wins. I also think what have you done for me lately comes into play. There's all these different metrics, but they do look at your last 10 games and what is your record and who have you beaten, because they want the hottest teams in the country in the field. Yep. And TCU very much checks that box. They've won 5 of their last 6 games. And during this stretch, they've beaten Iowa State. They've won true road games at Oklahoma State. They've taken care of business against West Virginia and Arizona State. And their last 3 are at K-State. That's another road win they could get. At Texas Tech, that'll be tough. But then they wrap up the regular season at home against Cincinnati. I'm starting to lean towards TCU would really have to crumble to not get in the field at this point in time.
Yeah. I think at this point, 8 are pretty locked in for the Big 12.
Which was the goal. That was the benchmark. The league wanted half of their teams in the field, and I think we'll get that.
But there is still an opportunity for a 9th. Again, there's always bid thieves, which, if you take one away for the SEC and give one to the Big 12, but then there's a random team that wasn't in the field that wins their conference tournament,
right,
you got to make room for them. But I think there's a path for a 9th Big 12 team, depending on, what an Auburn, what a Missouri, what some of these other teams that are down the list on the 11 numbers for the SEC do. The other thing is the SEC and the Big 12 are kind of opposites this year insofar as the number 1 team in the SEC right now, Florida, according to Joe Lunardi, is a 3 seed. There are 4 teams in the Big 12 that are higher seeded than that. So the SEC may have more teams overall in a larger league, but they're not as top-heavy. They're more bottom-heavy, if you will, or probably the better way to put it is it's more of a parity league. So, I mean, Florida is a 3 seed according to the latest Joe Lenardi bracket, Brackettology. I mean, again, what is four teams in the Big 12 that are 1 or 2 seeds?
Right. I mean, that says a lot about the strength of the league. Now, let me ask you this. This is a fascinating case study. Miami, Ohio, okay, the Red Hawks have been a tremendous story. They are undefeated.
Yeah.
They are 28-0 or whatever it is now. But Joe Lenardi said on a call that if Miami, Ohio loses in their conference tournament, they maybe don't get in the field with just one loss. They're currently number 48 in the net rankings. So if they don't win their conference tournament, they're on the same line as VCU and Baylor and Cincinnati and Virginia Tech, teams that also find themselves on the wrong side of the bubble. And it's because they have not played a single Quad 1 game.
Yeah, I was just looking at it.
They are 0-0 in Quad 1. Should they be in?
They are 25-0. 24 of those games have been played against Quad 3 and 4. So, no.
Yeah, they're 25-0 against Division I schools. They're 28-0.
Got it.
Even in the non-conference, they played some Division II schools, which don't count against your record in the net.
But yeah, they're 0-0 in Quad 1, 1-0 in Quad 2. Every other game they played is Quad 3 or 4. So, no, they shouldn't be in. If they win their conference tournament. Because how are we giving them a different criteria to judge them on? Mm-hmm. Like, again, if it's Quad 1 inventory, nothing. If it's your road record, that's good, okay? If it's avoiding bad losses, they've done that. They're 48th in the net. They're not even top 40 in the net.
You know what they are in KenPom? 83rd. They've played the 292nd most difficult schedule out of 360 teams. There's nobody else on the bubble who has a strength of schedule even close to that bad.
Yeah.
In fact, the team that's right below them in KenPom is Ole Miss, who's 11-17.
Thing is, though, they've dominated the MAC, and there's no reason to think they won't dominate the MAC in their conference tournament.
Yeah.
It's Big 12 today, Big 12 radio. Plenty more to come on basketball. Plus, of course, we've got our continuing football offseason coverage. We start a new series today, tomorrow, and Monday from Saturdays to Sundays. Big 12 prospects and what actually matters when it comes to the NFL Draft Combine, with the workouts starting later on today. With James Amari, this is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Fafita.
Cincinnati starts with the opening tip. We're underway here.
One of TCU's bread and butters. You see the pace that they must play to average almost 80 points per game.
Turnaround is good for Marcus Suarez.
Excel at that mid-range game, that pull-up.
Miles, no look. What a feed. And Silva finishes.
And since Cincinnati's defense is the highlight right now, even though it's TCU defense that has all of the national rankings.
Suarez finally connects.
Scoring 31 in that fourth quarter. TCU will play the long game of 40 minutes.
Fall away, DeVillisi.
Cincinnati is just shooting under 33%.
Into the corner for Hunter. Look at that rebound for Miles, up there with one hand and then gives it off down low to Suarez. All TCU to start this third, and Suarez continues it. 7-0 run to start the half for the TCU lead. TCU's defense is really ramped up here as well. Carden blocked once again. Alexander through the contact. She goes 1 of 2. That's about her season average. But Suarez cleans up the miss for the lay-in. And another foul inside. Cincinnati led at halftime by 6. In this second half, TCU has outscored Cincinnati 40-14. That's off the window and one.
Marta Suarez has had the most amazing and impressive game. Overall, line by line, 25 points and 9 rebounds.
What a sequence.
Talk about NBA tanking with this ridiculous draft class. We've been talking a lot on it. The Chicago Bulls have not won a game in the month of February. And I'm free.
February's over.
Free falling.
So what, they're probably 0-12, 0-13?
And forever.
And they were above 500?
They were at 500. They were like the 8 seed or the 9 seed. And now they've got a 20% chance to get a top 4 pick.
Man.
Yeah.
Tanking on a whole nother level.
Chess and checkers, man.
Didn't we talk about Adam Silver's trying to come up with some ways to eliminate tanking? And I like his idea and his line of thinking because it's ridiculous. And the NFL, we see it maybe a little bit, but not to the degree that we do in the NBA.
There's so many NBA games. That's the thing is, it's like the NFL, it's one a week.
There's so many games and there's so fewer players.
Yeah.
Like one superstar can totally change everything for a franchise. We've seen that time and time again with Steph Curry and the Warriors and LeBron and SGA with the Thunder. Like just one guy and you've got a whole different outlook.
Yeah. All right, it's time for Let's Get It On.
Let's get it on!
A la Mills Lane. Thank you, Mills. This is where T-Chains introduces a topic, and we have to argue either side of the same topic.
All right, guys. Topic numero uno. Who was the bigger threat to Arizona in the Big 12, Iowa State or Houston?
Okay, so before I answer the question, my question is why Iowa State or Houston?
Well, good question, because I know they play Kansas this weekend, and Kansas already beat Arizona, but I was going with the top 5 teams. So I saw Houston was still number 5, Iowa State number 4, and Arizona number 1. That's why the question is phrased.
These are the top 3 teams in KenPom. Arizona's number 3, Houston's number 6, Iowa State's number 8 in KenPom.
All right, James, so go ahead.
I think the bigger threat is Houston. I know they've lost 3 in a row, which maybe is going to be a blessing in disguise because with freshmen that just continue to win, taking some L's can kind of force you to reinvent yourself and really dial in. And that's what I see from Kelvin Sampson and the way he's coaching these young guys. And this Houston team is still top 8 in the country in defensive rating. Offensively, they've fallen to number 16, but the shots haven't been falling. And something tells me Emmanuel Sharp and Milos Uzan are going to be bucket getters down the stretch in the Big 12 tournament and in the NCAA tournament. So if this question is, who's the bigger threat in terms of the Big 12 regular season championship, I don't think there is a threat. I think Arizona's got this thing in the bag. But maybe in the Big 12 tournament, if one of those two teams were to knock Arizona off, I would lean Houston because of their physicality, and I think the shooting will come around.
Yeah, it's really interesting because they don't really have tiebreakers, right? Like, basically, you share the conference championship, and then they have tiebreakers for seeding in the Big 12 tournament. But for all intents and purposes here, the worst that Arizona could do right now is tie. I mean, unless they lost out. And Arizona has Kansas and Iowa State at home and then Colorado. The chance of them losing out are very low. The chance of them losing 2 are decent with two very tough games, but both at home, Kansas and Iowa State. So, I mean, with everybody else stacked with 4 losses behind them, it just seems unlikely that they would not at least share the conference championship. Now, Houston's an interesting answer here because Houston should win out the rest of their games. Colorado, Baylor, and at Oklahoma State. But, I mean, do we think that those 3 losses, albeit to good teams, exposed some of Houston? I mean, I think the answer here is Iowa State if you're giving me 2 options. One, Iowa State has a chance to play Arizona, which Houston does not.
Right.
And Iowa State, while they have Texas Tech and Arizona left, they also just have Arizona State. So Iowa State, I think, has a good shot with Texas Tech at home, at Arizona, and then at Arizona State to go undefeated these last 3 games, which will give them a fighter's chance to at least share the Big 12 championship title.
All right. I like it. All right. Question number 2. Who will go further in the NCAA tournament? The injury-battled BYU or the tough, scrambling TCU Horned Frog?
This is a great question because BYU has that top-end talent, but I'm going to go with TCU here because I've been saying for quite some time that some of the ingredients that go into long, deep runs in the tournament for underseeded teams, let's call them 7 to 11 seeds, TCU checks a lot of boxes. TCU is an elite defensive team. TCU has experience. Those two factors alone, to me, they don't turn the ball over. Those three factors alone, to me, are indicative of long runs. When you go back and look at an NC State or some of these teams, especially from the power conferences that have made deep runs, when they're seated somewhere between 7 and 11, the common thread is good defensive teams, elite defensive teams. They rebound the ball well, they take care of the ball, they don't turn it over, and they have experienced players. That was NC State's deal when they went to the Final Four. I'm not saying TCU's going to the Final Four, but they check those boxes. They rebound well, they don't turn the ball over, they're an elite defensive outfit, and they have experience. TCU is my answer here. But great question, because BYU, see you make the case for BYU here.
Man, how awesome would this be? So CBS is the only major national outlet that is putting out an actual bracket daily. Like Joe Lunardi's tweeting a lot, but he doesn't actually do the field only about every 3 days. CBS has a potential first four matchup of 2 11 seeds featuring TCU and Texas A&M. How awesome of a matchup would that be for a first four game? And then TCU would play a 6 seed, probably either like a North Carolina or somebody else, a Kentucky, which are vulnerable 6 seeds. So I love your case there. But for me, for BYU, which right now is projected, according to Lunardi and CBS, as a 6 seed, and getting like a 3 seed Gonzaga in the second round, I think they're a Sweet 16 team in that scenario because of 2 guys, A.J. DeBonsa and Rob Wright. The NCAA tournament is so much about guard play, and DeBonsa is a walking bucket. I think he gets to the foul line a bunch in the tournament. I don't think anybody can guard him, frankly. And then Rob Wright, kind of his Robin to Batman. And BYU's been better defensively. They are better this year defensively than they were at this time last year, with Keba Keita on the glass and Kadeem Boop attacking the rim and kind of being a rim protector for them. So I could still see BYU making a deep run as a Sweet 16 type team. I'll say BYU.
Just quickly on BYU, I could see them being one and done if the team that they play, the matchup, is a good defensive team, because defensively you can try to take DeBonsa away and kind of be like, Rob Wright, get yours. Like, we'll let you go for 50. But if we take AJ away, we know nobody else is going to hurt us. Rob Wright, you get yours. Now, it takes a certain defensive team to do that. So, be looking at the type of matchup BYU gets defensively, but that's where I could see BYU being one and done.
You know who this potential matchup on CBS, their bracket, the 11 seed, would be? San Diego State. That'd be a nightmare of a first-round opponent for BYU because they're all defense.
Let's say, what are they, Ken Palm defense? They are 17th in Ken Palm defense. So, yeah.
Top 20 defense.
97th in offense.
Yeah, wouldn't want to play them.
Would
not want to play them in the first round.
Yeah, if they go up against a top 20 defense the first round, it's over for them.
Don't want to play those guys.
Yeah.
All right, next one. On the women's side, there's a big game in Fort Worth this weekend. College game day will be there. TCU and Baylor. Who's going to win the game? TCU or Baylor?
TCU. They don't lose at home. Sorry, I guess that was your turn to go first.
No, I don't think it was.
Good, thank you.
Tell that to Dariana Littlebug's page, who's going to be on the show later.
He's averaging 10.2 rebounds per game.
Yeah, they've won, is it 40 or 41 straight at home now?
It's a lot.
They're like big Bill Self on Big Monday at home, except they do it every home game. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, TCU doesn't lose at home. Olivia Miles is on one right now. She is dialed in. She's playing at a level unlike anything we've seen in the Big 12 in a long time. Like, even Haley Van Lith wasn't at this level. Yeah, TCU.
All right, so if I'm making the case for Baylor, it's that Baylor, once again for the second year in a row, hitting their stride in the month of February. They have been a late season team back-to-back years, and the difference this year is they're healthy. Little Paige Buggs, who's going to be on the show here in about an hour, the top rebounder in the Big 12, and then you've got Talia Scott averaging over 20 points per game. Her and Miles, I think the path for Baylor, her and Miles cancel one another out. They both go for 20 or 25 and just ball out in this game, which is what Big 12 Nation is hoping for with it being on ESPN Game Day. And then Baylor dominates the glass. That's the path to win on the road in a hostile environment, and it can be done. It can be done because these teams split last year in the regular season. They haven't seen each other, so it's the first go-around where Baylor could maybe sneak in there on the road and get the win.
All right, final question. Who will go further in the women's NCAA tournament? Number 17 ranked West Virginia or number 20 ranked Texas Tech?
I'm going West Virginia. I think stylistically, West Virginia and the way that they pressure the ball 75 feet down the floor. They have scoring at multiple positions on the offensive end. They have the sharpshooter in Shaw, who's really dialed in from three. West Virginia, I think, is a very dangerous team on the women's side. They look like a Sweet 16, maybe even an Elite 8 team to me. They've also shown that they can win on the road. So I lean West Virginia stylistically. They played a more difficult non-conference schedule, and so I'm leaning Mountaineers.
Yeah, I think there's too much firepower for Texas Tech. Despite having lost 3 of their last 4, I still think this team with Maupin averaging 15 points and Collins averaging 15 points a game, like that it's so tough when you've got 2 scorers like that with the ability for them to play inside out. And then, Jalen Bristow at the point guard position, 11 points per game. So they just have too much firepower at the top of their big 3. So, yeah, I think Texas Tech's the answer there. West Virginia is the best defense in the Big 12, but defense can only take you so far. I think you need some offensive firepower to win these games, and I think Texas Tech has that. All right, speaking of the women's game, our good friend Rachel Galligan joins us next to break down what's going on down the stretch here of the women's season. That's next with James Amari. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
As it's a senior night here from Orlando as the final home game for a pair of nights. Weeks ago up in Morgantown. In fact, West Virginia would hang 106 on the board as the slip pass inside. Count the bucket is Carter McCray. And so the Knights here doubling up West Virginia only through the first 5 minutes of this basketball game. Here is Nagodu in the paint, spinning and getting as Kayala Nagodu.
High low inside to Riviere, couldn't get there.
Now Gia Cook, she's going to look to create. Cook, she'll try a 3, and Cook will get.
See how I got those numbers backwards, 53 to 35?
It's the reciprocal.
They have a name for that.
Down inside, there is Chandler Roberts. And Harrison in West Virginia will look to extend. As we're under 4 left to play here in this third quarter, Shaw rattling home Country Roads. Technically, it was in Palm Beach County.
That 7-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio you had in high school, I mean, still holds today.
There is Nagodu.
Side Harrison in that backcourt for West Virginia. I mean, you talk about speed. I mean, they had arguably the 2 quickest, fastest players in the conference last year. Just a couple jets with the rock.
Here is Cook from downtown striking again. Currently in the Big 12 standings with 1 game remaining. They will be at home against Cincinnati coming up on Saturday. As that'll do it.
Big 12 Radio, it's Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We are presented by Modelo. And now let's talk with our good friend, Rachel Galligan, who does an incredible job covering women's basketball. What's up, Rach? How are you?
Good morning. How's everybody doing? I'm good.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thank you. All right, so we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. 3 games left. Huge slate last night. I'm going to start with my alma mater, Kansas, who's getting an insane freshman season from Jalea Davis. And, of course, Samaya Nichols is also fantastic. And they've had a really disappointing season, but suddenly they find themselves in a good spot after their win over Texas Tech last night. 8-9 in conference, 18-11 overall. They got a tough end of the season against Oklahoma State, at Oklahoma State. But, you know, we heard from the vice president of women's basketball for the Big 12 yesterday saying, you know, a 500 Big 12 team has never gotten left out of the field. So it feels like Kansas gets a win against Oklahoma State on Saturday, and they're in.
Yeah, I mean, definitely looking at just all these kind of middle of the pack teams and different kind of scenarios of what can play out here. I mean, obviously you look at things like the net, you know, you're going to look at the overall schedule, you're going to look at, you know, all those sorts of things. But a lot of, you know, what the tournament's going to, or the committee's going to look at is going to be just the, the momentum that they have going into, March Madness and the NCAA tournament. They've won 3 in a row, really big win over Texas Tech. I think, you know, just getting their second quad 1 win was really big. Obviously, you know, I mean, they're a team that the best they can finish is going to be 9 through 13 in terms of seeding for the tournament. But, you know, you have the firepower with Samaya Nichols, who is literally, I literally just put this stat out this morning. She's moved up into 6th in the all-time Big 12 free throws made list, and she's only a junior.
That's insane.
So like only a junior, and just what she's doing. And then, I mean, Jalea Davis, in my opinion, should and very, very easily, you know, could be up there in that conversation for freshman of the year. I know she missed some games, but national freshman of the year, in terms of leading all freshmen in conference scoring and in the country, has been just absolutely dynamic. And so, yeah, I mean, Kansas has always been a team that I think, you know, the multiple times we've come on here and talk about it, you kind of wonder, they're a dangerous team because they have so many weapons. They just, you know, a lot of their wins came within single digits. I think it was, I calculated a couple weeks ago, 3 of their 8 wins at the time had come within 3 points or less that they had lost by. And so they've been in games, you know, it's not like they're getting blown out. It's not like, you know, they're just rolling over. This is a team that you just kind of get the sense that they could really start figuring this out. And if they caught wind and they caught some momentum at the right time, you know, they could be not just a problem in, you know, the Big 12 tournament, but if they could find a way to get into the NCAA tournament. I will say going up to Stillwater is a really difficult matchup, though. There's not very many games won there in Stillwater. I think they're 32-2 in the last 2 seasons.
Wow.
Yeah, Oklahoma State. So we'll see. That'll be a good one to finish out the season.
Rachel, we had a couple of women's basketball topics that we debated just a moment ago, and I love this question that Taman proposed. Who has the pieces to go further in the NCAA tournament, West Virginia or Texas Tech?
Oof, that's a good one. Man, West Virginia has just continuously just impressed me all season long in terms of just, you know, their guard play, especially, you know, Jordan Harrison. And you just look at just, I don't know, how the way they play. That's a really tough one. And maybe it is a little bit biased with me because I'm with them a little bit too much. Not too much, but you know what I'm saying. I'm there all the time calling Texas Tech.
You're too close to it.
What I love about Texas Tech is in some ways they sort of mirror the TCU method, if you will. TCU, the oldest team in all of Power 4 conferences. I think that Texas Tech's second oldest team in all of the Power 4 conferences. But Texas Tech, like, their defense is so effective. Not that West Virginia isn't. Obviously, there's but their depth. They're so deep offensively. You know, we have Snetta Collins and Jada Malone coming off the bench. When they are clicking, you know, when they're able to set up their press, when they're able to really hone in on the defensive end of the floor, we know that this is one of the top defenses in the country. Didn't necessarily show it at times last night. I think last night in the Kansas game, you know, one of their Achilles heels is is their fouling. They put Kansas on the free throw line way too much. You can't do that against Samaya Nichols. But I like Texas Tech's veteran presence, their depth offensively. You've got Snutta Collins, who's been incredibly efficient. You got Bailey Maupin, who, when those two are on, they are really good. They can shoot the three ball exceptionally well. They can guard. They can defend you. Obviously, you could look right now. They've lost three of their last four, which is shocking to me as someone who holds this team in a really high regard. So I guess maybe just because of that, that makes me question a little bit what is the right answer there to your question. But I'm going to stick with Texas Tech in that, again, just because of the depth, the overall depth, and at the rate I've seen this team play offensively, when they're knocking down shots and they're guarding at the way they can, I think that they really can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the country. Matter of fact, when I watched them in that Baylor game, 87-56, it wasn't just, a nice, they absolutely dominated that game. And I texted one of the assistants afterwards. I said, if you guys play like that, that's a Sweet 16/Elite 8 team, in my opinion. So they have the tools. It's just a matter, can it come together?
I forgot you asked that question. For some reason, I thought I did. But I'm glad you agreed with me, because that was my answer, and for that exact reason. They just have
good.
They have too much they have too much firepower. TCU, are they like? I know we've been talking about how good the Big 12 is at the top. Are they becoming like a legit Final Four contender here?
I think it's possible. I think it's absolutely possible. Obviously, when you have one of the greatest playmakers in all of college basketball, men or women, or passing, Olivia Miles, I think anything's possible, right? And then, Marta Suarez has really come on. She put on, in my opinion, probably the best performance I've seen in her career. And she's a veteran player. She played so well yesterday against Cincinnati. 32 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists. She can do a little bit of everything. Is really, her stock just continues to increase. And then you've got great size on the interior. You've got Clara Silva, you've got Kennedy Basham. Basham's really coming along and giving them good minutes off the bench. I think, they have all the potential in the world to make a deep run. I definitely, at least bare minimum, I see this as an Elite 8 team. I think in order to be a Final Four team, this is anybody in the country, you've got to have some luck on your side too. So if, you look at some of the top 5-6 teams in the country and you have in that conversation, I have no reason to not say that TCU can't be in that conversation. Because, again, the same things. They can guard. They're veteran. They're older. They're experienced. And they've got a lot of offensive firepower. And I think when Marta Suarez is playing as well as she is playing, that just takes this team to a whole other level. She struggled a little bit a few weeks ago. Maybe 3 weeks ago or so, and you could visibly tell that this team was not at the same rate that we're seeing right now. So not that everyone always asks who's the X factor. I don't know that I would necessarily call Suarez the X factor, but obviously when you have that combination of Olivia Miles and Suarez, she's got to be really good for them to make it to the Final Four.
Yeah, ultimately the big ESPN College Game Day showdown this weekend, Baylor, TCU in Fort Worth. What does that game come down to?
First off, I think it's incredible that we're getting this opportunity. How exciting to be able to have ESPN College Game Day in Fort Worth. I think, Baylor's got a tall task ahead of them. Let's just be honest. TCU has their number right now. They've won 41 straight games at home. So what's it going to take to go into Fort Worth and try and win that game, especially when you look at the last matchup, which let's dissect that a little bit. TCU wins that game 83-67 in Waco. I think Baylor tried to, what's the right word? I don't want to say outsmart themselves, but they tried to game plan for Miles in a certain way that in my opinion, hindsight's 20/20, but in my opinion, they got away from who they really are. And so what I'm excited to see is, they kind of forced Miles to be more of an offensive threat than what she's used to being, instead of allowing her to get into the paint and spray out and get assists and create and facilitate. So forcing Miles to score, well, obviously she can score. She dropped 40 points in that game. She went 10 of 20 from the three-point line. So that's not going to work. I think what we have to remember about Baylor is this is a top three 3-point defensive team in the country. And so Baylor's ability to kind of lean into who they actually are defensively, play a little bit more to who are we at Baylor, what makes us really good, how are we effective? Well, it starts on the defensive end of the floor in the half court, also, being disruptive around the rim and coming up with steals and getting out in transition. And also, like, you can't have your main players not show up. I think it's been a really encouraging sign to see players like Belafonte Leroy, who went through a little bit of slump at that time during that loss. They need her to score the basketball. Dariana Little Buggs, we know she's going to be high motor in terms of her ability to score and rebound and go get second opportunities. She's going to bring it. Talia Scott's got to be really good. You've got to get really good minutes in production out of Jana Van Geitenbeek. And so I'm excited to see Baylor be themselves, is what I'm trying to say, because when this team is really good, they can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the country. But, as we said, TCU is the preseason favorite for a reason. They're 11th in the country for a reason. They've clinched, a share of the regular season for a reason, and they've won 41 straight games in Fort Worth for a reason. So big opportunity for Baylor, but they're going to have to, obviously, come up with a much different game plan than the first meeting in the regular season.
Who are we sleeping on right now in the Big 12?
Sleeping on, gosh, it's interesting, right? If you would have asked me 2 days ago, I would have said Colorado, who they've won 8 of their last 2 and really climbed up in the standings. I don't know if you can say sleeping on them because they have gotten notice. I think, in my opinion, I've kind of said this for the last couple of weeks, I think Oklahoma State, that's a team that came into the season with a lot of expectation. They have so much offensive firepower in their roster in terms of they can really score. They can really shoot the basketball. That's what this team is going to do. I think Staley Hurd is the engine that makes this team go. When she's playing really well and she's competing at the highest level, I think she's one of the best competitors in the country. I think that this team can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the country. They were ranked earlier on in the season, kind of dropped out of those rankings. I think at times have been a little bit inconsistent. Coming off that win at Iowa State, that got my attention last night. Winning in Ames against Iowa State, let's not forget, that was the preseason number 2 in the poll. So I think Oklahoma State, I really like this team. Is it possible that they catch wind in Kansas City? And, they're definitely an NCAA tournament team, no shadow of a doubt. But could they make a deeper run and really turn some heads? I think so. And you've got Achola Cott, you've got some size on the interior that's really, really producing for them. That's kind of been their Achilles heel. You've got Staley Hurd, Micah Gray, Jaden Wooten. Just a really, really good team. And they go as J.C. Hoyt goes. And so I really like how tough this team is. I like how much energy they brought last night. So I don't know. I think I could mention a few teams, but Oklahoma State, I just want to give them a little bit of airtime because I've been really impressed with them. And I think at times, a little underachieved a little bit throughout the course of the season.
Rachel, there are 9 teams in the Big 12 that are currently above 500 in league play. 8 of those teams have 20 or more wins. In terms of bids for the NCAA tournament, Utah appears to be, kind of right on the bubble at 18-11 and 9-8 in league. Is 8 the number, or could it be 9 for the Big 12?
What was the stat that I read or I put out yesterday? It was teams with 11-plus regular season conference wins that made the NCAA tournament from 99 to 2000 until now. In the Big 12, there was only one team that didn't make it. And so it's interesting, right? It kind of looks like that 11-win number is an important benchmark. So, okay, realistically, how many are going to get to that? We're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I obviously we're doing everything we can to help, kind of promote. And you really look at some of those bubble teams. I think Arizona State losing that game last night was kind of a gut punch to BYU. They needed that win. I'm hoping for 8. Long story short.
Yeah. Rachel Galligan. Rachel, you're the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I'll catch you guys soon, okay?
Okay.
Rachel Galligan joining us here on Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio. Yeah, a really fun race coming down to the finish here, James.
Yeah, and highlighted by what's going to take place on Sunday, ESPN College Game Day in Fort Worth, sellout crowd, rivalry, everything at stake. Because if Baylor, that ultimately decides who's in the driver's seat here in the Big 12 the rest of the regular season. TCU's 14-3. Baylor's 13-4 in league. If TCU wins that game, they're basically a game at worst, probably 2 games up on everybody else. If Baylor wins that game, Baylor climbs to the top of the league standings because they would have the tiebreaker. This is the first time these teams have met. And the 3 teams at the top of the standings, TCU's 8-2 in their last 10. West Virginia's 8-2 in their last 10. Baylor's 7-3. Like, we're starting to see some separation on the women's side, too.
That's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. And coming up next, we continue our series in grading the Big 12 transfer classes. The Athletic graded the transfer portal classes, and we react to that. That's next. But first, the Big 12 Conference Wrestling is back at the BOK Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The 2026 Big 12 Wrestling Championship presented by Allstate returns Friday, March 6th and Saturday, March 7th in the heart of downtown Tulsa. The best wrestlers in the country battle for individual titles, Big 12 Championship, and seating in the NCAA Championships. Tickets and premium hospitality are available now at bokcenter.com. That's bokcenter.com/events. Big 12 Wrestling at the BOK Center in Tulsa, March 6th and 7th. This is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
We have the chance.
Well, here we go. The opening tip going to be controlled by Iowa State, wearing their home white uniforms.
Coach Hoyt talked about this team not having any superstars. Very balanced scoring. 5 players average double figures.
And will belong to Oklahoma State. It's an 8-point game. And Hurd will spot up and hit. Both obviously love to shoot it. Crooks gets it low, avoids a triple team, and gets the bucket. Harris will roll it into Audie, who's blocked by Akot. Oklahoma State in transition. Akot going to be getting and one. Wow!
Does a good job of getting herself open, and the guards are getting her the basketball in opportune positions to score.
Williams shook off the defense.
She was wearing ankle braces on both legs. You know, she is back into the lineup, getting back into routine. She told me before every game she does take a nap, and
Whiting inside the paint finds Akot, who will get the basket at the horn.
She's done a really nice job defending Jada Williams much of the game, and Ariana Jackson for Iowa State with 3 fouls.
Wooten controlling it now to Akot and able to get the bucket. Akol Akot now with over 20. And Achol Akot with a career high 25 tonight helps Oklahoma State and J.C. Hoyt take a big one on the road here.
Radio, our game of the week this week on TuneIn is Kansas at Arizona. Surprise, surprise, Saturday at 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central. Should be a good one. Arizona's got two really good games at home consecutively against Kansas and Iowa State. You can catch the Kansas-Arizona game. Two huge brands going at it. Arizona looking to get some revenge from their loss at Allen Fieldhouse. Kansas-Arizona Saturday. 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern. You can catch it as part of Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. If you're not yet already, make sure to download the TuneIn app. Search Big 12. Make sure to favorite the channel. That way it shows up each and every time you open up the app. Coming up at the top of the next hour, we go from Saturdays to Sundays. Big 12 prospects and what actually matters when it comes to the Combine. Defensive linemen, defensive ends, linebackers are going to be tested today at the Combine. So we go through some of the stats that really matter and, of course, highlight the players out of the Big 12 who are going to be featured as part of the defensive end, defensive line, linebacker series today. That's coming up at the top of the hour. We're also talking in 20 minutes with Dariana Little, Bugs, one of the top women's basketball players in the Big 12 and one of the top women's basketball players in the country from Baylor. She joins us in about 20 minutes. But yesterday, James, we started this series where The Athletic graded the Big 12's transfer portal classes. Manny Navarro from The Athletic going from Texas Tech's A to Iowa State's D. And so we left off where after yesterday?
We left off with we finished Colorado, which means the first team today is Houston, who went 10-3 last year and added 19 transfers, had 17 depart. They added a ton of snaps, though. A ton of snaps. Over 13,000 career snaps added. They lost about 5,000. So, I mean, an 8,000-plus difference in terms of experience, production, guys that were on the field and producing at their last stop.
So he gave them a B+, and I think Houston may have the best transfer portal class in the Big 12. Texas Tech probably does, but I think they're right in the conversation. We went through our series of the top 5 newcomers at every position. Houston had a lot of top 5 guys at premium positions. I think B+ is too low.
Yeah, I would go A-. I'm right there with you. I think
A-. You're a tough grader. Why not an A?
I mean, okay, an A. Fine, an A.
I mean, did it always bother you at school when you got an A-? It's like, couldn't that just be an A?
Yeah. I think the whole plus-minus thing needs to just be thrown out the window, but I digress.
You just did A-.
I give them an A.
Just to throw it out the window?
Just to say I agree with it. It's an A, all right? But there's a theme that is developed, right? So Willie Fritz leaves Tulane to become the head coach at Houston. A lot of his former players went to other schools. Mekhi Hughes went to Oregon. He had an offensive lineman who stayed at Tulane. But then John Sumrall, his successor, leaves for Florida. And so all of those guys that were recruited by Willie Fritz knows inside and out what he likes about them in terms of their potential, their families, what they did at Tulane. Those guys are all now at Houston. And I just think the chemistry and knowing the expectations from the coaching staff is going to be immediately built in. Mekhi Hughes is going to be a dynamic running back for them. He was so good at Tulane 2 seasons back-to-back 2 years ago. And then the offensive lineman, Shadre Hurst, might be the best offensive lineman. He's an All-American coming into a Big 12 school. They add Trent Walker, who is the best receiver at Oregon State. And they, keep in mind, did not have a passing game whatsoever. Drew Terrell, the offensive lineman from Toledo, was an All-MAC center last year. They've got guys that are going to be starters right away. I absolutely love what they've done.
Yeah, I mean, they added 3 offensive linemen with a lot of starting experience. Anthony Boswell from Toledo started 13 games, almost 900 snaps in 2025.
Yeah. So 2 guys from Toledo.
Shadre Hurst, you mentioned him from Tulane, 35 career starts with a very high PFF grade. And then Drew Terrell started 12 games with 700 snaps. So along the offensive line alone, they added so much experience, albeit at the group of 5 level, but still, I mean, to me, again, they may have Texas Tech has the most high-profile transfer portal haul. Houston may have the best just overall in terms of depth, in terms of adding good experience. I mean, not even to mention Mekhi Hughes, not even to mention the wide receiver you brought up. So, yeah, I'm with you. I love what Houston's done. I think B was it B+? Yeah, it's still too low. All right, Iowa State, 8-4 last year. They added 47 players in the portal, and they lost 55. The grade for Iowa State is a D, the lowest grade that was given out in the Big 12. Your thoughts, James?
Well, I get it, and there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, you lose your entire team to Penn State and Matt Campbell. You lose Rocco Becht. You lose your entire secondary. Dom Orge is off to the NFL. So it's hard to replace 15 starters and 11 other guys that started a game and were rotational pieces for Iowa State. With that said, I think new coach Jimmy Rogers did the best he could do, and he brought a bunch of guys from Washington State with him. Washington State was a bowl team in his 1 year there, which was incredible considering all of the things they were going through. Just to put into perspective how impressive his 1 year stint was, Oregon State starts 0-5 and fires their coach 4 games into the season. Washington State, in the same camp, has a riser who uses that job to springboard him to a power conference in Jimmy Rogers. It was a night and day difference. They brought in a ton of experience. I love the quarterback Jalen Rayner, who's got almost 9,000 career passing yards, is a dual-threat guy from Arkansas State who played Iowa State, and so you have a really good sample size for what he's capable of. The D's probably a little bit harsh. If we were going minus plus, maybe a C minus, just because they lost so many guys and are trying to piece together a roster.
You go from a D to a C minus?
I go C minus.
So, okay. Let's put the players they lost to the side. What do you think of the players they've added?
Capable. I don't see any stars in the players that they've added. They've brought in a lot of guys from FCS schools or Group of 5 schools. I mean, there's no headliner, right? Like, probably their best incoming player is Isaac Terrell from Washington State, who was an edge rusher and a really good player, a linebacker from Washington State, a safety from Toledo. Like, their headliners are guys that came with him from Washington State. And Washington State was okay. They had a nice season. To get to 6-6 with everything they went through was uber impressive. But that doesn't translate to the Big 12. Like, this is the Big 12, in the words of Dan Hawkins. Okay, it's going to be – there's going to be some growing pains with Iowa State.
Yeah, I mean, I think a C is fine for them. I like what they did along their offensive line in terms of the portal. That, to me, stands out. I mean, obviously, you go from Rocco back to Jalen Rayner. I think that's probably a net negative, but maybe not as much as you'd expect. Mm-hmm. I think the pieces fit. I'm really anxious to see what Iowa State will look like. I think they're going to be better than people expect. All right, Kansas, 5-7 last year. They lost. They added 31 players and lost 25. The grade that they were given was a C+.
Which I think is too low. I think Kansas did a really nice job in the portal. They added 18,000 career snaps. They lost 6,000. So, I mean, a net positive of 12,000 portal snaps added, highlighted by Dylan Edwards, who, if you can keep his head right, he is an all-league caliber running back. They also added a bunch of dudes on the offensive line. Connor Stroh from Texas. I love the tight end Jalen Butler from Old Dominion. I think he fits what Andy Kotelnicki wants to do operationally on the offensive side of the football very nicely. And then they brought in a ton of linebackers because they lost some guys. They added guys in the secondary. Like, when I look at their haul, 9 of their 25 portal players started 6 or more games last year. And 10 of those guys came from FBS schools. So high-level guys that have been on the field at their last stop. I really like KU's portal class. I think it's much better this offseason than it was last offseason.
Well, and yeah, I agree. I think a B is probably more appropriate in my opinion, maybe even a B+. I think, like, they have a great mix here of smaller school guys that have produced, bigger school guys that have a higher ceiling that maybe haven't played as much. You mentioned Connor Stroh. They also had Kason Carpenter from Oklahoma State. Nick Morrow from Cal along their offensive line. So I think, and just historically, Lance Leipold has done a really good job in the transfer portal and offensive linemen. I mean, they've come in, brought guys in through the portal on the offensive line, and those guys have gotten drafted and are now playing in NFL rosters. Like, multiple guys. So, to me, there's a credibility there. And then the running backs. Yassine Willis from Syracuse, Dylan Edwards from K-State. Like, you've got the Thunder and Lightning. Willis is the between the tackles guy that's, one of the best running backs on a yards per carry average between the tackles, and Dylan Edwards is your speed guy in space. The pieces fit. They added Jalen Dupree, another running back, but also how about Nick McMillan, the Buffalo wide receiver, who was all first-team MAC last year with 1,000 yards receiving. So And then you mentioned linebackers. Like I think they did really well in the portal, probably better than what the C+ grade would give. K-State 6-6. They added 27 players, lost 32. Sort of shocking, I think, given a new coaching staff. You used to seeing kind of like what we saw for Iowa State or Oklahoma State.
50 or 60 plus guys departing.
They were given a D+.
Which is really harsh to me. I don't understand that at all. Now, I do get that Austin Romaine moves on, Tobio Tsunami moves on. Another defensive lineman that was a high-level guy whose name is escaping me also went to Indiana with Osunami. So you lost a lot of guys. K-State has to replace 14 starters from last year's team. 6 of those guys were transfers that left. However, the Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year was Wendell Gregory, who was a sack machine for Oklahoma State and a former 5-star guy at South Carolina who's already produced in this league, and he's headed to Kansas State. Then they added Elijah Hill, who was a double-digit sack guy and one of the most sought-after group of 5 defensive linemen in the country. They loaded up in the trenches. They added a running back from Oregon. They added 3 or 4 high-level receivers who didn't produce a ton at their last schools but were only there for a year or two. Joshua Manning from Missouri, he did produce. He was their slot receiver who had over 600 yards receiving. Prevard, the safety/corner from Virginia, was an all-ACC guy. The D+ seems way too harsh to me. I'm not giving them an A or a B+ or whatever, but I think they're more like B category than a D+.
Yeah, I don't know where you are on K-State, but I think K-State's going to be really good this year. Like, I am very optimistic about K-State. I'd give them a B. They loaded up on defense. And it's funny because we think about Colin Klein, offense, but I am really anxious to see the defense. I mean, Wendell Gregory and Elijah Hill are both coming off freshman seasons. Okay? So they've got 3 years of eligibility left and have already produced at a very high level. And to your point, Gregory in the Big 12. Prevard is a guy I think is extremely underrated. Adrian Maddox, a guy that didn't get a lot of snaps at Georgia last year, but has produced at UAB and Alabama State. And, I mean, he's a big time. So, I love what they did on the defensive side of the football. I'd give them a B.
Same.
Maybe even a B+.
Same. Makai Mason was an All-Conference USA linebacker at Louisiana Tech. They have a nice blend of – they bring in guys that have 13,000 snaps, and there's only 27 of them. So a lot of these guys were all on the field. I love Colin Klein's approach.
Oklahoma State obviously won 11 last year, have not won a Big 12 game in a couple of seasons. They lost 66 guys and added 53, and the majority of those guys they added were from Oklahoma State. They get an A-.
I love it. It's hard to disagree. I mean, North Texas was in the college football playoff. Weren't they?
No.
You're right. Tulane.
They lost to Tulane.
But they were close.
Yeah.
They were really close.
Yeah, I mean, they would have gone had they beaten Tulane.
Yeah. Well, Drew Mestamaker is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Caleb Hawkins led the nation in rushing. Wyatt Young is a future pro. He'll be playing on Sundays. And then they added guys from other those guys all came with Coach Morris from North Texas. But this isn't just North Texas guys. They loaded up in the trenches. They brought in a receiver, Justin Bowick, who was really dynamic at Illinois and was almost a 1,000-yard guy last season. They signed 10 players who started at least 6 games at FBS programs, several of those from North Texas. But they added 5 defensive starters from other FCS programs. I think Eric Morris did a fantastic job. They did lose 66 dudes, but is that addition by subtraction when you look at the season that they had?
Yeah, they won 11. I don't have any issues with it. I'd give them an A. I don't think an A- is necessary here. Yeah. Maybe there's a small distinction, but I think Eric Morris is an offensive guy. They added a bunch of guys on the offensive side of the football from UNT, including one of the country's leading passers and one of the country's leading rushers. So, and then they added from other schools on the defensive side. That makes tons of sense to me. Add the guys to keep that continuity from North Texas on the offensive side. I mean, you have offensive lineman, wide receiver, quarterback, running back, all that are not heading into spring ball needing to learn a new offense. That's huge.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm with you on Oklahoma State. I think put them at the top. I mean, for me, it's Texas Tech, Houston, and Oklahoma State that have the 3 best recruiting portal classes. All right, we'll continue this series, conclude it with the T's. We're on to TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, Utah, and West Virginia tomorrow. we check in on the Athletic grading out the Big 12 schools' individual grades for their transfer portal hauls. And remember, Modelo fan rule number 31, there is no offseason, only research. We're doing more research than the Athletic is on what these Big 12 schools will look like, which is why we're correcting their grades here on Big 12 Radio. All right, with James Amari, it's Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio. We've got our Combine series coming up in about 20 minutes. On the way next, though, it's Dariana Little, Paige Bugs, one of the stars of Big 12 women's basketball, joins us. It's Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Well, for a shot at the NCAA tournament. We'll get into a little more of that as we move forward. Texas Tech wins the opening tip. Mopping against Nichols. Real good point guard matchup here tonight. And a dribble and a pass, and Sanogo gets the first bucket.
Jalea Davis fouled out of that game.
Strangely enough, Meister was the only one without a foul in that game that played. She got the first one here tonight. Inside to Jalea Davis, and a quick bucket from the block. Just under 10 a game last year at Ole Miss. She has found a new life and really good success offensively, certainly for Texas Tech. Nichols on the bounce, on the drive, flips it up and good, and a one. Copeland 1 of 4. Jayhawks seniors playing their final game of the regular season here at Allen Fieldhouse tonight. Inside to Bristow, and she had a nice post up on Samaya Nichols, and may have. Kansas has been at about 15 before they're able to set their offense. Step back three for Evans out of nowhere. Bristow off the handoff, steps back.
Good defensive possession for the Jayhawks.
Trying to run Nichols off a few screens. Driving the corner, Canessa will launch for three and hit. To come from behind win, and the Jayhawks are going to be victorious tonight, 68-59 over Texas Tech. Two coaches, which
Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, along with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. ESPN College Game Day will be in Fort Worth on Sunday for TCU Baylor women's basketball, a premier matchup in the Big 12. And joining us now to talk about it and the season is Dariana Little Page Buggs from Baylor. Averaging a double-double this season, and earlier this season eclipsed 1,000 rebounds in her career. Dariana, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. Appreciate your time. 1,000 career rebounds. That's an insane accomplishment.
No, yeah, it's really crazy. And especially the surpassing some of the people on the list, it's still like mind-blowing.
What's made you so good at rebounding?
The ability to just go get it. I've learned early in my career that, if you can't do anything else or anything's not follow, you can always rebound.
Yeah.
So that it just kind of came from that, and I stuck with it.
Are there any rebounders that you watched, or anybody that you kind of model your game after when it comes to the art of rebounding?
Truthfully, no, but I had a great mentor, Sophia Young Malcolm, that went to Baylor. She was there up until my junior year, but she's just always been in my ear and been a really great mentor. And she's kind of instilled that in me too, hey, if this is not falling, you can go get a rebound. And I think just once I started doing it, she put more emphasis on it, so it just got bigger.
Former 5-star recruit, a top 20 player by ESPN out of high school. Dariana, at what age did you realize that you could dominate the glass and dominate the paint like you have during your Baylor career? Did it come naturally to you, or was it something you had to really work on?
It came very natural. I mean, just my game in general just come from want to, I want to be better. I want to make this shot. I want to be good. So I just think overall, it just came naturally, and I think that I had people around me that just pushed me to really be great. So they didn't minimize anything. If I was good at something, they pushed me to maximize it.
All right. So what stands out to you about this matchup with TCU? Obviously, these are two of the best teams in the Big 12, and you've got TCU on Sunday.
Just the big matchup. I mean, there are two really good teams going at it. And we didn't do so good the last time, so maybe just a little bit of doing better than the last time we did. So, it'll be a good game.
When you say last time, are you talking about the last time you played TCU?
Yes, the last time we played them. I know just last year was rough for us as well, but I think we can definitely make some adjustments for the next game.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is just the profile of this matchup with ESPN College Game Day and everything else that goes into this showdown. The last time was 83-67. TCU got the win. What are the takeaways? What do you have to do better this second go around?
I would just say, just bring our energy and just continue to elevate our defense. We pride ourselves on our defensive end, so if we do those things, we'll be all right.
What do you like to do off the floor?
I'm actually trying to figure out new hobbies, but I love to listen to music, so you can catch me. I've started walking this year in the morning, so I like to walk and listen to music. Me and my teammates have done a couple Lego sets. Legos are actually pretty fun to do, so kind of just chill vibe things.
Nice. What Lego sets?
I'm not sure the specific flower, but it's a flower we built.
Oh, nice.
I had started a project earlier with my little sister as well. It's a Lilo and Stitch, excuse me, Lego set, and then I also have it's another flower, but I'm trying to be better at them. So they're time consuming, but they're fun. So
no, they are. I mean, I love putting Legos together too. It makes me feel like a kid, but it's it's humbling. It's quiet. It's
therapeutic. All right,
therapeutic. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
Yes, no, I like I said, I've only done a couple, but my teammate who's really good at them, Markayla Johnson, she's like a pro, and she's like, oh, you just have to do this and do it again, and I'm like, wait, that doesn't look like that. She's like, you just got to keep going, but I hope to get to big ones one day because she's done huge ones, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm on beginner status. So,
now, if I remember right, when we spoke to you at Big 12 basketball media days, we touched on the type of music you listen to. So what's the game day? What's the practice playlist that's on your playlist?
Practice, honestly, it varies. We have a playlist, but I'm not sure if we follow that all the time. But kind of like early 2000s music, a little bit of old school, a lot of R&B. Lately, it hasn't been as much rap. It's just been a kind of chill vibes. But honestly, just a mix of everything. If just whatever I'm feeling, gospel. One thing that I love about our team is if we have a Sunday game or Sunday practice, we don't listen to anything but gospel music.
Nice.
Which I love because it's like, usually we have practice during that time. So it's like, okay, we can at least get some praise and worship in while we work out. So
that was it. It was the gospel music, and you inspired me to listen to some Christian rap on my way home, and I'm not kidding. So
why not gospel?
Give me
why
two or three.
Why weren't you inspired to listen to gospel?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what gospel is by definition. So give me one or two songs I can look up right now that I can throw on my playlist for later today.
This is kind of a throwback, but I don't know if you know who Andy Mineo is, but it's a song called "You Can't Stop Me." And then just what I've listened to, it's not very upbeat, but I don't know, it hits the spot. It's called "Praise Is What I Do." I forgot the artist's name, but I know the cover is like yellowish. But "Praise Is What I Do" is something that I listen to at least 4 times minimum a day. It kind of carries me. It's been carrying me this year, so I really take pride in that song.
William Murphy.
Yes, there you go. That's the name.
I've got them both.
Yep. So
awesome. Well, with you already accomplishing what you've accomplished in your career and having spent so much time at Baylor, you're like a throwback. It's funny you keep talking about old style music and stuff, but like with the transfer portal, and I mean, you just look at the men's team in Baylor. Like Scott Drew can't keep rosters together. To think you've spent all this time at Baylor, I mean, it's incredible because I think some of this is being lost in college sports, to where like people in Waco know you and know your game, and that it's just hard in the college game today because especially in basketball, like there's so much roster turnover and roster churn.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and I didn't really realize that until this year, how rare that is, especially for my class. It's been amazing though. I've actually taken a little pride in that. Like, hey, like I have been here for 4 years, and seeing that people don't stay at their university or maybe ended up at a few universities during their college career, is something that's just very important to me. But I think that also it speaks to how valuable Baylor is, and not just to me, but the fact that my recruiting class has also stayed the 4 years. I think that Baylor's a school of family, and not just saying that, but truly feeling that. It is truly a school of family, and the people that I've met and still have relationships with from Baylor is just out of this world. Like I don't just talk to them about basketball, and I talk to them about real life things, and they help me with real life things, and just the relationship. It's not just all serious. I feel like we're the most unserious people ever, and not just players but our staff as well. And I think that's just something that that's kind of kept us there for sure. So
were you recruited by Nikki, or you recruited by Nikki, right?
I was recruited by both, actually.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I was wondering too, because you said your recruiting class stuck together, and I was thinking, is that a Kim recruiting class or a Nikki recruiting class? Which makes it even more incredible to think that you guys all stayed together.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, for sure. I did have opportunity to go with Kim, but I don't know. It's just something about Coach Nikki and her staff that just kind of made me gravitate towards Baylor.
So when you look at, this is your 4th year at Baylor. When you look back to the previous 3 teams, what's different about this Baylor team compared to those others?
And not that it's a bad thing. I feel like just my team being young this year, I think that's the difference. But it also gives us a chance to grow in our leadership. I think leadership has been the biggest emphasis this year. But I think it's good because it's allowed them to play freely while also learning. And I think that's just something really special. I think just the different ways of scoring every year has been different. There's been different players in different spots. And it's just, I don't know, it's just been amazing to see like the different teams every year, and who stays and who doesn't, and whatnot. But I think that's just the biggest thing. But like just our scoring this year is very different. It's very versatile. But I think we do use our youngness to our advantage. It allows us to different people to grow up in some sense, and it'll be good for their experience in their coming years.
Awesome stuff. Dariana Little, Page Bugs, good luck on Sunday. Good luck the rest of the season. Thank you so much for your time. Be well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dariana Little, Page Bugs, eclipsing 1,000 rebounds in her career this season, averaging a double-double on the season. And, you think about the fact that Kim was outgoing, Nikki Collin comes in, and that recruiting class stuck together. I mean, compare it to Baylor men's basketball, where the last 2 years it's been total roster churn. Baylor women's basketball, there's something Nikki does. I mean, Nikki Collin is such a good coach. We know that, but like from a cultural perspective, to be able to keep these players not play the portal game, it's huge.
And I think it says a lot about Coach Collin and just her system, which I think it's a really fun, offensive-minded system that still relies on rebounding and defense. And Baylor is a program that's just been incredibly consistent under the previous regime and now Coach Collin. And again, if they win this game on Sunday, all of a sudden they're 14-4 in the Big 12. They would have I've been saying all show it's the first meeting between these two schools. It's the second meeting. I forgot they played 3 weeks ago, a game in which TCU won. So Baylor knows what they have to do better this second go-around, and I think they're going to be hungry. And Dariana Little, Page Bugs, who we just talked to there, is going to have a monster game down low.
Yeah, that's James Wesley. I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. All right, the draft combine is going on now, and the workouts start tonight, with defensive linemen, linebackers, and kickers. So we start our new football series throughout the offseason from Saturdays to Sundays, Big 12 prospects and what actually matters. We'll take a look at the defensive linemen, defensive ends, linebackers that will be tested from the Big 12 and what scouts will be looking for. That's next. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Both these teams are top defensive teams in the Big 12. Coach Kumard was very adamant that they needed to start strong. There's a nice little pick and roll.
Levette runs the floor to Amaya Williams. Stop and pop and nail it.
First half, and she's going to get cooking. It's her senior game.
Played just 6 minutes. Picked up those 2 early fouls as Delaney Gibb responds with a triple. 26-11 spread in the third quarter. There's the story in the first matchup as well, as BYU outscored ASU by 9, and Gibb scores at the horn.
Long with instant offense off the bench.
Washington set to check back in at the next whistle. Hamlin out of control, no, but Rokel cleans up the mess.
Too easy. Too easy. Got to put a body on people.
Quick inbound. ASU couldn't even set their press. It's a turnover. Washington's with the steal. Washington will force it up and get the roll. Back to a 3-point game. Late in the shot clock. Gibb works to her right. Finds Hamlin. Hamlin will drive. The floater is good with 13 seconds to go. Timeout ASU.
So you're going to want to take a 3, and you're going to want to try to draw some contact.
Levette to Washington. She throws it up at the horn. It's no good, and BYU's comeback is complete. What a story for the Cougars tonight in Tempe.
Let's dig in. Cannot wait to talk NFL draft here. For me, nothing better than the draft. Preparing for it, watching film, breaking down sizing and hand placement and numbers, and I love it. Because part of it is the art of, like, I found this guy, and I think he's going to be a great player, and he ends up being a 4th or 5th round pick, and voila, he becomes an all-pro player.
Yep.
The satisfaction that you get, even as an amateur scout, in finding and observing the diamonds in the rough. That's what I love about draft season. It's great.
And the NFL has become a league where rookies are playing more now right away than ever before. Guys that are drafted in the 3rd or 4th or even 5th round are expected to be on the field. Maybe not starting immediately, but playing major rotational snaps. And guys that are taken on the 1st and 2nd day are expected to be starting right away because teams are trying to get younger. They're trying to save a lot of cap space for the big splash quarterback position and the salaries that they have to pay there. So these guys that are drafted in the first 3 rounds, I mean, you're going to be on the field a ton.
Yeah, the NFL is about your production exceeding your salary cap hit.
Yep.
And rookies are at the guys on rookie deals are at the forefront of that. So the dirty little secret about the NFL is the reason there's so much parity is because of the importance of the draft. Because you really have to hit in the draft consistently to be really good, because you cannot live in the salary cap era. Like you cannot live in free agency. You can plug certain holes there, but it's a hard cap. You've got to stay out of the cap, and those guys that you draft have to become huge contributors in your roster. All right, so this is our series from Saturdays to Sundays, Big 12 prospects and what actually matters when it comes to the draft combine. Of course, brought to you by the Full-Time Fan, because the Full-Time Fan by Modelo knows no off-season. And remember, Modelo's off-season optimism is
mandatory.
Rule number 31, off-season doesn't mean off, it means research. And so that is what we are digging into the research around the combine. So when it comes to the combine, I think it's important to note that maybe the most important aspect of the combine is something that nobody sees, and that's the medicals. Right? For all these teams, they need that medical information on these players, because otherwise they've got to travel to all these different locations to try to find all this information on these prospects. But in this case, there's everybody in the same location, and the medicals are at the forefront. They also talk about the importance of interviews. I think it's stupid, honestly. Like, interviewing, to me, for any job, it's such a bad gauge of that person. Like, you're seeing a representative of that person. You're not seeing that actual person. Mm-hmm. So I think they do put some stock into those interviews they do, and I think that's just the arrogance of NFL teams of, like, knowing, like, oh, I can read this guy. I think for me it's medicals and then some of these really important measurables, which we get into in a moment. James, so today it'll be defensive linemen, linebackers, and kickers starting at 3 o'clock Central. It's all now become primetime TV on NFL Network for the Combine. And this is a loaded class at edge. In fact, edge rush may be the best position group in this draft. Based on just talking to people, seeing what's written, there could be as many as 8 edge rushers that go in the first round, which has not happened basically since the T.J. Watt, Taco Charlton draft, where there was, I believe, 8 edge rushers in that draft going in the first round. Mm-hmm. I only say those 2 guys because I was covering the Cowboys at the time, and that draft stands out to me with those 2 guys. In particular, the Cowboys drafted Taco Charlton before T.J. Watt, and the rest is, as they say, history. But obviously the Big 12 is deep into this edge rushing class with David Bailey, even going deeper with Romello Height, and some of these other guys that are going to be available from the Big 12. But according to one AFC general manager, quote, it might be one of the deepest edge classes ever, especially through the top 50, 60 guys in the entire draft. There's all types of skill set and body types that fit different needs, but the talent in general is just very, very good. So there are 9 defensive linemen and 7 linebackers out of the Big 12. And here is one of those elite edge rushers, David Bailey, what he said when interviewed by the media at the Combine on the edge rushing class.
I think the first thing comes with just being athletic. So, I had a great strength staff at Stanford, great strength staff at Tech that just helped me become the best athlete I can. And also, I just watch a lot of just edge rushers. So I try to emulate my game after Von Miller. Watch a lot of DeMarcus Ware, Aiden Hutchinson. So just watching different pass rushers, getting a little bit different tips and tricks from them. And then obviously, I play my own game. I have a unique game. So, yeah.
So, by the way, I think, sometimes you got to, with interview questions or things, you got to like really sort through. A lot of guys in this day and age will like not know current players or even former players.
Right.
The fact that he's like, yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence, Aiden Hutchinson, like that to me is that's a really good flag of like, not only is this guy having it on the field, like he knows off the field too what like the mentality that it takes.
Yeah, he's a slam dunk pick. Whoever drafts him, whether it's in the top 5 or in the top 8 or in the top 10, you're getting a plug-and-play, edge rushing, starting defensive end who's going to be a multiple-year Pro Bowl-type prospect immediately. And the guys he mentioned, Lawrence and Hutchinson, are both kind of power rushers, which is the same camp and how I would define David Bailey. He's great with his hands. He's strong. He's got good feet. Versus the other Texas Tech guy like Romello Height, who's just a freak athlete. Like sitting next to him at Big 12 football media days and then watching him this season, it's like that dude is going to be a disaster for opposing quarterbacks. Like you bring him in on third downs and let him just pin his ears back, and he's graded kind of a mid-round edge rusher. I think he's going to be a steal. Malachi Lawrence is the other edge rusher from the Big 12 that NFL Combine's tracker, they grade him at like a 6.23, which is in the upper echelon of edge rushers. Malachi Lawrence is a guy that was super productive at UCF and maybe one of those non-Texas Tech guys that represents the Big 12 very well at the defensive end position.
Yeah, so defensive end, David Bailey's at the top, and that's a guy that's certainly going to be a top 5 pick in my opinion. And then you have, like you said, Malachi Lawrence, Nigel Lee Kelly, Romello Height. Those are kind of the rest of your edge rushers. Jackie Marshall as well from Baylor, excuse me. The interior, though, I think is the strength of the Big 12 in this draft beyond David Bailey. And that is Skylar Gill-Howard and Lee Hunter from Texas Tech, 2 guys that are totally different. Dante Corleone and Dominique Orange as well. So really good, I think, top-end players. Here is what Lee Hunter told the media about his game.
The people that's in that building are amazing. The people, when you with good people and you got good players, you able to win. You're going to be obligated to win. I just think Texas Tech got some great people there, and if you go visit, you'll feel like you're home.
And that was a big selling point for Texas Tech, right? Was we can get you to the NFL and playing on Sundays. And they run their weight room and their conditioning program like an NFL franchise. These guys are prepared. They're super prepared for the combine, for the draft. I love Lee Hunter and his size at 6'4", 310 pounds. And when he's hungry, which we saw towards the tail end of the season, he was playing on a whole nother level. And then Dante Corleone is fascinating to me because this is a guy that would have been a lock for a first-round pick if he didn't have the heart condition 2 seasons ago. And now he's aware of it, he's past it, but he also still had to take himself out of games in second halves this season, and he missed a couple of games. So I think the only hesitation with him is his health, which you led the segment off talking about how important that is for NFL teams. But drafting him in the 4th or 5th or 6th round, somebody's getting a steal at defensive tackle because we know how productive he is on the field when he's out there.
I mean, he's a monster. You have to account for him on the field. I think he's going to fall because of the medicals, and to your point, I think somebody's going to get a steal. All right, so let's dig into some of these stats that matter. Some of the when we're watching the combine, if we're paying attention or looking at some of the numbers after they run these workouts. For defensive linemen and linebackers, scouts use basically 3 buckets. There's the explosiveness, first step, maybe most important for an edge rusher, but also important for an interior defensive lineman. Can you win the first 1 to 2 seconds of the rep? Short area movement, very important for linebackers and interior defensive linemen. Can you redirect, stay balanced, accelerate again, right? A lot of traffic in the interior, so linebackers and defensive linemen. And then processing and personality fit. Do you see it, explain it, and live it day to day, right? Like that's some of those instincts, some of the things. It's like that. If this guy's maybe a step slow in the explosiveness, but he's got the smarts, like the smarts can make up for that explosiveness. So for edge rushers, agility, change of direction tests, the 3-cone and the shuttle are really hugely important. That plays into the explosiveness first step piece, winning the corner. For the interior defensive lineman, the money is frequently first step acceleration, which is that 10-yard split. I think the 10-yard split is probably most important workout for all 3 of these groups, edge rushers, defensive linemen, linebackers. The 10-yard split, so basically, again, it's the 40, but in 10 yards.
Yep.
So makes a ton of sense for why it'd be very impactful for linebackers, defensive linemen, edge rushers. So if you've got a sub 1.6, 10-yard split, that's elite. 1.65 to 1.7 is starter level.
Okay.
Anything over 1.8 is a major concern for an edge rusher. Interior defensive linemen can survive slower splits, but like thinking about the edge rushers of the Big 12, anybody gets more than 1.8, now you're buried in the draft, because that's a huge tell of your immediate initial burst and explosiveness, which, like edge, there's nothing more important than that.
Right. And I can't wait to see what these numbers look like this afternoon and break them down at length tomorrow, because that makes sense. I mean, the 10-yard split, your explosiveness, your closing speed, and then the 3-cone and the shuttle to measure hip flexibility, rush angles, bend, agility, ability to attack at different angles. That's super important. And then the hand usage is another thing that scouts are looking at. And there's not really a measurable at the combine for that specifically outside of just how big are your hands. But are they active? Are they effective for those big defensive linemen up front? And then arm length is another thing.
Yes, good
that
call.
We'll keep an eye on.
Especially because it's harder. A lot of these are more for edge rushers than they are for interior defensive linemen.
Yeah.
To your point, it's some of those other things, hand placement, arm length, that are huge for defensive linemen.
Yeah, the arm length can help with projections as a pass rusher. Individual teams do kind of weigh that differently. But you're right, with the interior defensive linemen, we're looking at leverage and pad level and explosiveness, which is going to be huge for these guys in the Big 12.
Yeah, I read a piece where a scout for the Steelers said that the 3-cone is the major indicator for projecting edge rush success. So the 3-cone, similar to the 10-yard split, you kind of use those to verify your numbers. Mm-hmm. But the 3-cone, just looking at kind of the importance for edge rushers, sub 7 is like, that's elite. I see David Bailey running a sub 7. 7 to 7.3 is starter profile, and then 7.7 or higher is stiffness, shows up on tape, is not good. Right, the cone is the bend around the edge. Mm-hmm. So how quickly you're getting around the edge. Anything over 7.7 is not good. And most nose tackles are not going to run the 3-cone because it doesn't make any sense. They don't have to bend around the edge. They're middle. They're interior, the exact opposite. All right.
Well, those are two huge, important drills and stations. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
For linebackers, too. Like linebackers, that's going to be huge. 40-yard dash for linebackers, your straight line speed, your explosiveness, although I think that it's important to dissect that 40-yard dash more than just this guy runs a 4.5 or a 4.6 or whatever it ends up being.
All right, let's talk linebackers. Jacob Rodriguez, Jake Golday, Lander Barton, Keyshawn Elliott, Jack Kelly, Caleb Elarms Orr, and Nnamdi Obiazer. Here's what Caleb Elarms Orr said about his preparation for the draft.
I think it translates in a lot of ways. I'm smart, I'm fast, I'm physical, athletic, solid sideline. I'm an all-around player, I feel like. I feel like I can do everything, just from a blitzing, coverage, run game, leadership standpoint. I feel like I can do it all.
Yeah, so linebackers, it's about spacing and decisions. So the combine helps for scouts and NFL teams to see, like, how can you survive at modern NFL spacing. The short shuttle is a big one. That's 20 yards, right? So you're going to need a little bit more range than the defensive line. So defensive line, the most important one to pay attention to is that 10-yard. The short shuttle, 20 yards, is huge. Sub 4.15 is rare. 4.15 to 4.35 is starter, and then 4.5 and anything higher is stiffness, concern, and then 4.7 probably take you off the board from a linebacker perspective. And of course, this is off-ball linebackers, not edge-rushing linebackers. Also, the 3-cone, same kind of thing with linebackers. How flexible are you? How can you move? And they're looking for sub 7 for elite, 7 to 7.2 for strong, 7.4 tight hips, 7.6 again limited range. So that one's tough.
I think at the linebacker position, the guy I'm most excited to see how he fares is Jake Golday from Cincinnati, because he hasn't been playing the position that long. He was a true defensive end on the line of scrimmage when he was at Central Arkansas. Then he transfers to Cincinnati, and he starts out there as an edge rusher on the line of scrimmage. He adds a bunch of weight but doesn't lose any of his speed. I just think he's a tremendous freak athlete with super quick feet and twitchiness and all of the things that you want at that position. And if he has a big day at the Combine, I mean, NFL scouts are already really excited about him. He's the one guy that, I think could skyrocket based off of not just what he did at Cincinnati, but his measurables.
There's some really good linebackers in this draft.
Yes.
4 out of the Big 12 in particular are guys that I'm paying attention to. Jacob Rodriguez, Jake Golday, Jack Kelly. How soon we forget about Jack Kelly because he missed the end of the year with that injury.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lander Barton from Utah.
Yep. He was the other name I was going to bring up.
Athletic freak. So a guy that you know what you're getting on the defensive side. A guy that played a lot of offensive snaps for Utah.
Mm-hmm.
That says to me his athleticism is off the charts. And that's you're looking for a guy that could play safety and linebacker in the NFL right now. The Nick Emanuare, who I can't say his name, who was leading the Seahawks as a rookie last year, is arguably the defensive rookie of the year last year. That's his profile is Lander Barton.
Right. And then you've got the 2 guys from TCU. The guy we just heard from who's super confident, and then also Obiazor. I really like his game. He's projected to be one of the top linebackers taken off the board from the Big 12. So it's an exciting day, man. And you are locked into these numbers, which I greatly appreciate. I'm a data guy, and you've got the points.
I'm an amateur scout, okay? Coming up next to help us break down what's going on at the Combine is Dave Hellman from The Athletic. Few better than him talking draft. Dave Hellman joins us next at Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Here are the top plays from this week's Player of the Week.
Miles with Kara Merchant having her ankles tangled. Miles, filthy for her third 3. Finds herself fit enough to be a part of this TCU lineup because Coach Campbell is unforgiving in practices. How about that for Miles? And the foul with no fear.
I mean, she just has a knack for making plays there, making something out of nothing.
Dean and Tillman at Sac State. Creativity gets Hunter down low. Ross with an offensive board, and she is stripped away by Silva.
There's been at least 3 shots that Houston's had right around the rim that they just haven't finished. Houston really struggled to score in the paint, though, throughout this one because of their length. That's just their 6th point in the paint.
Mismatch again for Suarez.
Miles with the pass fake, wide open look, finally throws her hands into the air, getting closer, taking longer than what we expect after watching her go for 40 at Baylor. Suarez rattles in a 3. Williams now with 13. Miles looks to dish, gets the assist. Basham with the finish. Miles weaving through traffic, puts it up off the window for 2. But got it before it went out of play. Miles somehow, some way found the opening.
Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 Today. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We are presented by Modelo and the full-time fan by Modelo. This is our series from Saturdays to Sundays, Big 12 prospects, and what actually matters when it comes to the draft combine. And joining us now to break down his thoughts on that is Dave Hellman, one of my favorite people to talk football and the NFL draft with from The Athletic and The Athletic Football Show, joining us from Indy at the Combine. Hellman, how are you?
I'm wonderful, man. Good to talk to you.
Appreciate your time. All right, so give us the lay of the land here. You know, what's I know you're a vet in covering the draft and being at the Combine. Just give us a sense of like what's going on right now and what's been going on the last couple of days.
I mean, it's it's funny, like Combine is this big esoteric word with like no firm definition. And so it leads to a lot of like intrigue. It's just a big job fair, and there's always something happening pertaining to the next 2 months of the NFL calendar. I mean, something like, I'd say 28 of the 32 NFL general managers speak publicly at the Combine. Same goes for head coaches. So most of the power brokers do a public media availability. They also typically will make themselves available to their local media. So if you're a Baltimore Ravens writer coming to Indy, there's a pretty good chance you'll get to, at least 15, 20 minutes of FaceTime with your general manager and your head coach, which is invaluable. And then obviously agents are here gauging interest and kind of getting the lay of the land for what their free agents are going to be worth when free agency opens in the next couple of weeks. I mean, I know we know that there's no tampering, but we can kind of roll our eyes at that and say that, like, by the time this week is over, I would guess most of the agent community is going to have a good idea of the market for every player and, in a lot of cases, where those guys are going to wind up in 10 days. Wow. And then, obviously, you got this year's draft class, and they're all cycling through and speaking to the media and working out. And I think that starts in earnest today, the on-field part. So you got, like, 4 different job fairs all happening at once in one convention center and 5 bars in downtown Indianapolis. And it's very chaotic and very fun.
Oh man, it's chaos in the best way. Absolutely. And job fair is a great way to describe the event, not just for rookies, but for the other guys too. I'm curious, Dave, when NFL evaluators look at this Big 12 class, what's kind of the league-wide reputation?
For the Big 12? I think right now, obviously the standard bearer for the Big 12 right now is going to be David Bailey. And I think it's really fun that he's going to have a chance here to kind of showcase himself as one of the very best edge rushers in this class. I think, and obviously I know Texas Tech made a run in the playoffs as well, but it really felt like Reuben Bain and Arvell Reese ate up a lot of the oxygen among the major edge rushers in this draft class over the course of the season. And the average NFL fan who maybe isn't paying close attention to college football is learning about guys like David Bailey right now. And then obviously you got Spencer Fano is another guy. I'm curious to see the other Utah tackle, Caleb Lomu, kind of gets overshadowed by Fano, but a guy that certainly has the measurables and the physical makeup to be a first-round draft pick. And so, obviously the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get most of the headlines and are going to have a ton of top 50 draft picks, but it feels like the Big 12 is going to be really well represented in the top 15, top 20, top 30 picks this year.
Yeah, no, it's especially at the edge position, which, I'm curious for your thoughts. It seems like it's as good and deep as it's been in a long time.
I love it so much. And, I don't think there's a Myles Garrett in this class. There's not a guy that is going to step in and be a rock star from day one, or just I'm not going to say the G word. I'm so sick of the word generational, but there's not that guy. But at the same time, I think Dane Brugler and myself, my good buddy who I co-host Building the Beast with, he put together a post or a pre-combine top 100. and I think he had 16 edge rushers, which led the way.
Wow.
Or, no, excuse me. Receiver led the way with 17, and edge rusher was right behind at 16. So 16 edge rushers that Dane currently has a top 100 grade on. I mean, we know all the big names, but it seems to go all the way down where, I've always said, across my time covering the draft, I'm like, all right, if an edge rusher is worth drafting, then he's probably not going to last past like the top 15, top 18 picks. And this really feels like a year where that's not true. I think you're going to be able to find some good value at edge rusher into the 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe even the 60s, depending. And so that's definitely really exciting.
Would love to learn more about the interview process and that interview room. I guess first, how long are players meeting with teams or general managers or whoever, and what all goes into the interview process?
It's a really good question, and it's actually something that's changed. The Combine has kind of undergone some changes over the years, and I was actually talking to some old coaches yesterday, and it's funny, it used to be a lot more work, but I think teams kind of miss it because, like, back in the day, it was just a free-for-all. And, like, don't get me wrong, I think you get 60 formal interviews, and so what a formal interview is you have time allotted during the day. Typically it's at night after all the other stuff is over, where you can choose these guys and you get them in the room for 15 minutes, and it can be with whoever you want. Like, some teams recently aren't even sending their head coach and their general manager to the Combine. The Rams are famous for not really thinking it's worth their time. So it could be with the head coach and the general manager, or it could just be the scouting staff that meets with these guys. But you get 15 minutes with 60 guys across the 6 days that you're here, and that'll typically happen in the evening. But then you can do informal interviews where, if it's between drills or between media sessions, like if you can just grab a guy for a few minutes for a chit chat, you can do as many of those as you want. The problem is, back in the day, it was a lot less structured, and so teams would just be free-for-alling with each other, with scouting staffs trying to pull a guy into a meeting room, and the other team saying, hey, like, we booked this time first, what are you doing? And literal fights used to happen in the hallways of these hotels trying to get time with these prospects. They've regulated it more and turned it into a more official thing. And like I said, if you talk to guys who have been doing this for 20, 30 years, they're like, oh yeah, it's boring now. We just have to submit a time card and wait our turn. We can't just go out and steal prospects off the hotel room floor. But all this stuff is going on throughout the 5 days that we're here. But then the funny thing is, I think people get so hung up on these meetings, and it's like, David Bailey has a meeting scheduled with the Cowboys, and that obviously gets everybody super excited. But the funny thing is, you get 30 visits that you can do back at your facility, where you can bring a guy into your facility and, put him through the whole car wash. And on top of that, there is...
I think we lost Hellman.
I think we did too.
Yeah. Great insight there from Dave Hellman. We'll try to reconnect with him in a second.
Call from Hellman. Press 1 to send a voicemail. Press
live radio.
Zoom. Gotta love it.
Hey, sorry about that, guys.
No worries. We just had a great conversation with Zoom. Go ahead.
Where was I? Sorry.
You were talking about the free-for-all and the fighting and teams grabbing guys in hotels and just how much it's changed.
Oh, yeah. And I was going to say, the funny thing is, I think the thing that goes underreported is you can bring 30 guys to your facility. There's also no limit on what you can do outside of your facility. Like if a team wants to fly out to where a guy is based and work him out privately, they can do that as many times as they want, or they can have as many guys as they want hop on Zoom. I think that was a big thing from COVID, where it was like, wow, this is so easy and so convenient for everyone. You can do as many Zoom calls as you want over the course of the draft. So it's always very interesting and sexy when an NFL team is meeting with prospects at the Combine. But the meetings that we never hear about are very numerous. And so I think some of this stuff gets overblown, but it is very fun to see how hard teams work to talk with these guys.
As somebody, Dave, that's been around the draft for as long as you have and have seen so much, and you cover college football and the draft and the NFL so well, what are some of the biggest misconceptions? Maybe what are some of the things you've noticed that you thought were important that aren't, just based on results? And then what's the opposite? What are some things that are extremely important as it pertains to the combine?
So we talked about this the week Dane and I did a show heading into the combine. The number one thing, and what I just talked about with the meetings is definitely a big misconception, but the number one thing that I don't think people know about the combine is the testing is very fun and the interview thing is very cool. And like I said, it gets a lot of headlines like, oh, this guy said what in his meeting with the Seahawks? Like, oh my God, that's so interesting. The reason the combine is here and the reason why teams want it to be here is for the medicals. And I think it is the single biggest aspect of this whole thing is there are 3 major hospitals in the downtown Indianapolis area. And so they're all within a convenient walk or a short car ride of the hotels and where the convention center is. And the number one thing that teams want out of the combine is you put all 320 of these guys through a full battery of medical tests. Like every single guy that comes here gets an EKG and gets looked at by a physician. And, there are MRIs for guys that are recovering from injuries that have injury history. They all do that. And so all 32 teams get a detailed breakdown of everybody's medical history and where they currently stand. And we will only ever hear about 5% of that stuff.
Yeah.
Every now and then you'll have a story come out where, 5 or 6 years back, Maurice Hurst was a defensive tackle who they found out at the combine that he had an irregular heartbeat and it was a big deal. But every single guy here has something, whether it's I broke my collarbone when I was in 8th grade and it set funny, or, I've got a degenerative knee condition where my knee cartilage is slowly deteriorating, or, I've got a wonky elbow, whatever. And we'll never hear about most of it, but it informs so much about how teams value these guys. The number of conversations I've had over the years where I'm what the hell happened? Why did this player fall to the 3rd round? He's so good. I love his tape so much. And you inevitably will get back well, yeah, he is a good player, but you have no idea that he's got this thing with his foot. And it's oh, right. We really are working with incomplete pictures here in the media. And so that's the number one thing I try to tell people is the medicals are the biggest part of this, and also the information that we will know the least about during the draft process.
Wow, such a good point.
How extensive is that process? Are these guys there all day? What all goes into that? Do you know?
When you first get to Indianapolis, you and they kind of stagger it. They bring guys in at different times. The early position groups will get here Sunday, and maybe some other guys won't get here till Monday or Tuesday. So they try to stagger it. But when you get to Indy, you are at the hospital. It's not all day, but you are at the hospital for a minimum of 2, if not 3 or 4 hours, getting all of this stuff done. And I remember, I don't know if y'all remember the Alabama linebacker Reuben Foster.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I think they, like I said, they've tried to fix it so that this doesn't happen. But with 300 guys getting all of this stuff done, you'll have bottlenecks where there were times that I bring up Reuben Foster because I remember he got really frustrated because he was at the hospital for 8 hours because there was a bottleneck waiting for all the right tests. And it's holy cow, am I going to spend the whole week in this hospital? So yeah, like I said, I think that goes underreported too, is that's the first thing you do when you get to town is you spend not an entire day, but a healthy chunk of a day in the hospital just getting all this stuff done.
Dave Hellman, check out the Athletic Football Show, and he and Dane on Building the Beast. Of course, the Beast is Dane Brugler's breakdown. For my money, Dane's the best, but Hellman and Dane used to host the Dallas Cowboys draft show with Jeff Kavanaugh and KT Turner. That was, for my money, the best draft show ever, not even just specific to the Cowboys, Hellman. So glad you're back with Dane hosting some draft coverage.
It was like slipping into an old comfy pair of pants, getting back together with Dane. I was like, oh man, this feels great. I forgot how easy this was.
Yeah. All right, Dave, you're the best, buddy. Take care. Be well.
Anytime, y'all. Appreciate you.
Dave Hellman, The Athletic Football Show, joining us here on Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today. Great insight there on the Combine. I mean, I said it at the start, right? The most important part of the Combine is the medicals. I mean, think about it. You got all these players that they're trying to look at. If you're an NFL team, you're not traveling around the country to do medicals on this and find a hospital. And it's the exact reason why it'll never move out of Indy. It's the reason it's in Indy. It's the reason they have the Combine. Like, it's almost like, yeah, look over here at all these other things. Meanwhile, like, the most important thing is medicals.
Yep.
I am very curious how Dante Corleone will be, how they'll handle the Dante Corleone situation. Mm-hmm. And I think that this will come up as part of the draft process. I would imagine there are teams that will take him off their board.
Right. Well, and I love what Dave said about the media and the public only know about 10 or 15% of what is actually in those medical reports and everything that they put them through, which it sounds like, man, they go through the ringer with 3 hospitals right there in the downtown area. And with Corleone, I mean, we'll find out on draft day, right? Because if everything's good and somebody takes a flyer on him in the 2nd or the 3rd round, we'll know that, hey, all is good. If not, if he falls to the 6th or the 7th, then maybe that portion of the Combine didn't go as well as he had hoped. Dom Orange is another one. Because Dom Orange, I mean, he carries a lot of weight. He is a big dude.
Yep.
So what do his medicals look like going into the draft?
Yeah. And look, I mean, when it comes to medicals, NFL teams are overly conservative. And that's why I say, like, there's going to be teams that will take Dante Corleone off their board. Mm-hmm. Now, not breaking up that he's got this medicine that he takes, and then when he takes it, he can still play. But I'm sure there are teams that will be like, well, will he take it his entire career? Will there be a day where he decides he doesn't want to take that medicine? And
yeah,
I think Dante Corleone could be an extremely productive interior defensive lineman, as we saw at Cincinnati. I think you'd be foolish to take off your board, but they're overly conservative on the medicals.
Well, I'm excited to see what he does in the bench press. I'm pretty sure he was like setting Cincinnati and Big 12 records, and between that and his explosiveness, he's a dude. And you saw the difference with Cincinnati and their defense when he was out there versus when he was on the bench and when he was on the sideline. They were one of the top defenses in the Big 12 when Corleone was on the field. That's one guy playing a 3-3-5 defense, locking down the defensive line, one man by himself. Their edge rushers were supplemental guys to what Corleone did. So the on-field productivity is there.
Yeah. All right. From Saturdays to Sundays, that is our Big 12 Combine series. It continues tomorrow with the defensive backs and tight ends. We'll reflect on what the defensive linemen and linebackers did in today, and we will take a look and preview some of the most important workouts that the defensive backs and tight ends will go through as they go tomorrow. Quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers on Saturday, offensive linemen on Sunday, and then we'll recap it all on Monday. With James Westling, I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 Today. Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Here are the top plays from this week's Freshman of the Week.
Underway. Finally, Nichols comes away with it, 2-on-1, and why not get it to Jalea Davis for the lay-in?
That was a shot that was certainly with some confidence as Sanaya Copeland kind of deflected that into her hands. It wasn't a clean catch, but was able to finish it. And Jalea Davis with a tough finish in between 2 Cougar defenders.
There's no doubt. Bread and butter. Run the high-low.
Yeah, she's going to see that all game.
Garrow now at 12. Nichols on the drive through the lane. Kicks off to Canessa. Rattles in and out. That was halfway home. Davis, the stick back. Copeland looking inside, always looking that first option down low, and Davis got it. The basketball there, 2 defenders, and a foul.
Such a good heads-up play here. You know, when you see the high-low action from post to post.
It's it to Canessa. L. Evans, top of the circle 3. Williams tracks down the second chance. Inside to Davis, 3 pink jerseys, and the and one.
Finished by Jalea Davis, as you had mentioned there. 3 pink jerseys around her, and Jalea Davis winning.
Kansas getting the Jones turnover, now back the other way with the basketball. They've been able to rest Samaya Nichols in this stretch as Kansas has exploded. Darrow coming off a 21-point game at 14 at halftime to 17 now for the game. Loose floor opportunity, and Davis gets the lay-in on the assist from Canessa.
Has been a big lift for this K-State squad.
This team has become a better defensive team since that blowout loss at Allen Fieldhouse. Nice backdoor play.
Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 Today, along with James Westling. I am Ari Temkin. Great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12, where football season never sleeps. Because for Modelo full-time fans like us, off-season optimism is
mandatory.
Mandatory. Got to be optimistic about the off-season. All right, we've got, obviously, college basketball. 3 games left on the men's side, just a game left on the women's side. The Big 12 women's basketball tournament in Kansas City coming up. I mean, these winter sports are nearing their ends. So what a fun time of year, James.
All right, when I ask you who are the biggest NFL sleepers in draft history, where does your mind go?
Well, Jerry Rice.
Okay.
Tom Brady.
Yes.
Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy. I wondered how far you would get down the line before you'd say Brock Purdy. Because the dude has balled out in the NFL, Mr. Irrelevant. He was the last pick taken, and here he is with a ginormous contract, having a lot of success. But the others, Jerry Rice, great find. And I think every NFL fan thinks of their team and their franchise, and you think of who are those guys for your team. Like, I'm sure you could give me 2 or 3 guys for the Bears. I could do the same thing for the Chiefs. Taman, maybe the Cowboys. Not so sure. Oh, he says yes. Okay.
You can. Cowboys, have, as bad as they've been pretty decent at drafting.
Yeah, they got Dak in what, like the 5th round?
Fourth
round.
Yeah.
Chiefs got Tyreek Hill in the 5th round. Who are the Bears guys?
Man, that's a good question. Bears have really struggled with the draft of late. Just trying to think off the
Did
top
they
of my-
draft Devin Hester?
Yeah, good call. Hester was a sleeper for sure.
Yeah.
But think of some of their best players, like Brian Urlacher was a first-round pick. Caleb Williams, the first overall pick. Yeah, I mean, Devin Hester's probably up there.
Okay. Makes sense.
It's funny because I've got all the draft failures top of mind for me on the Bears.
Chiefs had a draft, and I'll never forget it. I don't remember what year it was, but it was the year that they drafted Travis Kelce, which would have been, 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. And I remember just thinking the Chiefs had a ton of picks, and I felt like they crushed it. And maybe it was just that I was familiar with those guys. I had watched Cincinnati's bowl game, and I remember watching that game, and Kelce's lining up at receiver, and I'm like, who's this guy? The Chiefs happened to draft him. They got Jamal Charles in like the 3rd or 4th round that year, who ended up being a stud in the NFL for the Chiefs. And that's what I love about the draft, same as you. Like those 3rd round, 4th round guys that your team draft, that you go and you start doing a little bit of research on, or maybe you just happen to know and be familiar with their play right off the bat that you get really excited about. Another one the Chiefs took was Brian Cook, the safety from Cincinnati in the 2nd round. I start watching tape on him and reading about his measurables, and he ran like a 4.3 40. I'm like, this dude is a stud. And now he's a all-pro type of safety for Kansas City.
Well, and there's a couple of former Baylor linebacker safeties that stand out. Like Jalen Petrie was a 2nd-round pick from Baylor. I mean, he's a guy that's been a stud in the NFL. One of the best defensive players, certainly in the secondary in the NFL as he's been there. So, I mean, he was a guy that probably should have been a 1st-round pick. Terrell Bernard was our 3rd-round pick. I mean, he's a stud linebacker, from Baylor. So
Tyler Lockett, when he was drafted by the Seahawks,
call. Yeah,
3rd round for this guy. Like, did you watch K-State? He was their entire offense, and they almost went to a New Year's Day, like college football playoff type bowl when he was there.
Yeah, no, I mean, and to me, that's the most fun part about the draft is finding those sleepers. It's finding the guys that you think, man, this guy, the production, like I don't know what I'm missing about this dude, but he is, Creed Humphrey is a guy that played in the Big 12, obviously formerly at Oklahoma, who I can't remember if he's a 2nd or 3rd round pick for the Chiefs. And it's like
2nd round. And everybody's like, why are you reaching for a center in the 2nd round? He was like an all-state wrestler. I mean, he was just perfect NFL center for over a decade.
I remember it's like, why are teams passing up? Like, you're going to have a center that you're going to plug into the middle of your offensive line for the next decade and, like, feel really good about it. Like, that, you could do a lot worse than that. All right, so our draft preview coverage continues tomorrow as we're breaking down the stats to know from the Combine. We'll react to what we saw today because I think today may be the biggest day for the Big 12 with defensive linemen, linebackers, defensive ends. And I think there's some linebackers that will be really good NFL players out of the Big 12. We named 4 of them: Jacob Rodriguez, Jake Golday, Jack Kelly, and Lander Barton from Utah. All right, saw this note and wanted to mention it. The Houston-Kansas Big Monday game was $2 million. Big Monday's up 85% year over year. Big Monday features the Big 12. So that is extremely good news for the Big 12 that year over year Big Monday's numbers are up. And I think that has to do with, 1, scheduling 2 brands, and 3, the fact that the Big 12 has had such great matchups on Big Monday. I mean, it feels like it's either Arizona, Iowa State, Houston, or Kansas playing some mix of those teams. So it's just been a great schedule, great timing with top teams in the Big 12. 9 Big Monday games in 2026 have eclipsed 1.25 million viewers. And obviously the one on Monday with Houston and Kansas, over 2 million viewers. I think Saturday's game with Kansas and Arizona is going to do a huge number. I think you mentioned earlier, like Arizona's game against Houston was...
Arizona-Houston was the most watched ABC college basketball game since 2002.
Wow.
Since 2002, Arizona-Houston, that matchup that was on ABC, 2.4 million viewers. Fans are watching more college basketball right now than ever before, and I think Jay Williams was onto something. when he had his comments about the brand and just the quality of play in college is so much better right now than it is in the NBA. And there are so many freshmen, future NBA superstars that are playing in college basketball this year. And then I would add to that last year's NCAA tournament, I think, has helped with that dynamic, because the NCAA tournament last year was historic. You had incredible finishes. You had high-level play with big shot after big shot, limited turnovers, just a really fun, smooth style of basketball that resulted in an incredible Final Four, an incredible national championship game, several of those Houston being involved with directly. And I think that's translated to, man, college basketball is really fun to watch. And now more people are watching in the regular season as we ramp up for the month of March.
Yeah, well said. I mean, traditionally these numbers get up when it comes to the tournament. The fact that these numbers have been as prevalent as they've been this year, I mean, the fact that Big Monday's up 86% year over year speaks to the attention that people are starting to pay for college basketball earlier in the season. And I think there's, as we've discussed, a couple of factors here. Number one is the freshmen. People can't stop talking about how good this freshman class is, and so many of them in the Big 12. And then number two is the fact that there's 10 teams sinking in the NBA and sinking quickly. So, like, the product of the NBA, yeah, it's good for certain teams in certain markets, but not everybody. And when that happens, you get people that are still looking for basketball that are finding college basketball, because those fans of those 10 teams markets, those 10 markets, are trying to scout and figure out who from this freshman class that they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree. Real quick, I've got the top 5 Big 12 sleepers in NFL history. You want to see if you agree with this?
Okay.
All right, draft sleepers, because we forgot some dudes, okay? Let's start with Darren Sproles, Kansas State. 4th-round pick, 2005, all-purpose weapon, had ridiculous career yardage numbers.
Too small.
That was the knock, right?
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill, same thing, too small. 2016, 5th round, Oklahoma State. Number 3.
Also had the punching the pregnant lady.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't great.
Yeah.
All right. We talked about Travis Kelce, but what about Jason Kelce? He was a 6th round pick in 2011, went 191 overall, long career with the Eagles, multiple first team All-Pro seasons. Then we get to your guys, Kansas. Chris Harris, 2011, undrafted, 4-time Pro Bowler, lead corner in those epic Broncos Super Bowl runs, played a little safety too, Super Bowl champ.
They had 2 Kansas corners on that Super Bowl
Aqib
champion.
Talib.
One of the greatest defenses in the history of the NFL had 2 corners from Kansas, Aqib Talib and Chris Harris Jr.
Yep.
Yeah, Chris Harris, I forgot about him, man. He was a stud in the NFL.
Undrafted, and he was a stud in the Big 12.
Right. 2008 Orange Bowl champs. That defense was salty, and, I mean, for good reason, right? Like, yeah, they could defend you on the outside.
And then Brock Purdy, the other name. Jordy Nelson would probably be another guy from K-State, 2nd-round pick, that actually the Packers kind of reached for him. Nobody knew a whole lot about Jordy Nelson because he played on a team that didn't make a bowl game his last 2 years at K-State, but there are some hidden gems from this conference, and we could go through every school and rattle off several.
All right. Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Thanks, of course, to our great producers, Anthony Smith with Big 12 Studios, Taman Turner, T-Chains with Tune In. Thanks to James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. Big 12 today is back tomorrow, but for now we're out. Peace.